Cultfigga TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host of Y'all Mean a Revolution, and we got a World War III alert. Be sure to wipe your feet coming into the House of Revolution. That's hitting the like button. Subscribe to the channel, man. We got some geopolitical information we got to get into. 3 U.S. troops killed, 34 wounded in an attack in Jordan. Now, this is fresh. Y'all. I was bringing y'all some information on Democrats suing Joe Biden and having enough of Jim Crow Joe. But now, as I'm going live, I get this across my desk, and I've got to bring this to y'all right now. We got the World War III alert. This will be used for more violence. Revolutionary salute, family. This is I knew this was gonna happen. I've been warning people this was gonna happen. Joe Biden done put us in our troops in a very, very dangerous situation. But let's see what done took place. I don't know much because it's going on as soon as I'm coming to give y'all some information. So let's find out. But we knew this was going to happen.
Hello, everybody. It's about 12:15 p.m. here on the East Coast, and we have some very unfortunate breaking news, but still major nonetheless that we can go ahead and share with all of you. U.S. Central Command has now announced on January 28th, 3 U.S. service members were killed and 25 injured from a one-way attack UAS, that's referred to as an attack drone, that impacted at a base in northeast Jordan near the Syrian border. As a matter of respect for the families, in accordance with DoD policies, the identities of the service members being withheld here now for the next 24 hours until their next of kin have gone ahead and be identified.
Those people have been warning the U.S. to leave. We've been saying remove our troops, bring them home, take them out of harm's way. They wasn't wanted there. We knew this was going to happen. Them troops being in the Middle East was called a tripwire. The U.S. do this type of shit. They leave troops vulnerable somewhere, which they can't help, which can't really defeat nobody. It's not enough to defeat none of those armies, but it is enough to draw us into more hostilities. Why would they need us there? Because Israel is being defeated so bad.
President Biden also issued a major statement from the White House that I can hear for all of you. They say, quote, "Today, America's heart is heavy. Last night, 3 U.S. service members were killed, many wounded during an unmanned aerial drone attack on our forces stationed in North." It's going to be more. It's probably going to. We don't want more. I'm going to get that straight. I don't want no more American deaths. That's not. But I know that death toll going to rise. They never tell the truth. So you got 3 dead. You got 34. Some severely wounded. That death toll might wind up being 15. You know, this is at the foot of Joe Biden and his administration, because people knew this was gonna happen. But guess what? It can get worse. If anybody watch my lives, I've been telling you, they've just been throwing light shots at the U.S. This was to let the U.S. know it can get worse. You've been assassinating Iranian Revolutionary Guards. You've been assassinating Hezbollah generals. You've been assassinating Hamas generals. It's gonna get worse. East Jordan near the Syrian border. While we are still gathering the facts of this attack, we know it was carried out by, quote, a radical Iran-backed militant group operating in Syria and Iraq. Jill and I...
And that's why we got to stop that right there. It's no. Syrians attacked the U.S. because they want the U.S. out of their country, you know, stealing their oil. If it was in Jordan, Jordanians, you see. You can't talk about who they buy their weapons from. Because, see, this they want to draw attention to Iran. You were attacked by Syrians because you won't get out their country and you've been stealing oil.
I joined the families and friends of our fallen, the Americans across the country in grieving the loss. These service members embodied the very best of our nation, unwavering in their bravery. So the top line, obviously, is that 3 unfortunate U.S. service members were killed in this attack. Initially, they're not assigning blame to any specific group, but they are claiming it is, quote, a radical Iranian-backed militant group. Interestingly, they are saying they're operating in Syria and Iraq, raising the question of this as a multi-pronged attack, whether it was a single.
We already know they're operating in Iraq to kick you out of Iraq. You're stealing their oil. And they're operating in Syria to kick you out of Syria. You're stealing their oil. This is all about America stealing oil, and back in Israel, because you've been stealing oil, but you're back in Israel have now gave them the legitimacy to attack the troops in their countries for you stealing their oil. You can say Iran all you want. No, indigenous Syrians, indigenous Iraqis are attacking you.
single group on one side of the border where there was a cross-border type of operation. The top line also, in terms of their response, they said that they reserved the right to respond. Quote, we will hold all those responsible to account at a time. And
this is bullshit. That was the response. No, they're responding. See, we got to come on here they're responding to you being in a country. This was no attack on America. This was an attack on imperialist colonizers stealing in other people's country. Now, this was an attack on our troops. May they rest in peace. Bring those troops home so they can be here, take care of the family. You want to take care of our border? Go on our border. I'm ready. I'll be right next to you, rocking and rolling if somebody coming to America. But I'm not with nobody nowhere else stealing oil and shit like that. That's piracy. Now, they talking about U.S. We got the right to respond. Then they gonna respond again. Then the responses is non-ending. And military generals, Conor McGregor, you know, some of these. So you've been listening to some of these people that's been Scott Ritter. They have been warning America this is gonna happen, and you can't defeat them people in the Middle East. This is not 1880, 1770. No, you're not Lawrence of Arabia going through the Middle East conquering. No. This is serious business. They got the weapons. They just showed you that to attack your bases. What happened to your missile shit? What happened to your air defense system that was supposed to be protecting these troops?
And in a manner of our choosing, raising questions about what exactly that is going to mean. So in terms of some little bit more of the detail, it's very, very early that this is all happening right now. I'm going to go ahead and share the BBC News here. They say that in general, in terms of quoting, they note a very interesting statistic. They say Jordan has housed U.S. military bases for some time, and it is estimated there are about 3,000 American troops who are typically stationed there. And of course, they also highlight that earlier this month, 2 new U.S. Navy SEALs are presumed dead by the U.S. military after they were missing during an operation off the coast of Somalia. But these are the first American service members actually killed on the ground in a attack like this since the war between Israel and Gaza began more than 100 days ago. This is obviously going to be a major piece of escalation in terms of what the U.S. response will look like with the Iranian groups. They're ascribing blame to Iranian groups. We don't know yet whether this was directed by Tehran or not, what the U.S. intelligence agencies and all of that are saying. But nonetheless, I think we're going to be hearing about this for quite some time, in the future. It's a very dangerous moment. I don't think it's a surprise this happened in Jordan. It was almost certainly a message because Jordan is very close, to Israel. And it's possible that if some sort of justification or any of that were to come out, this is purely speculation on my part. I want to be clear that, perhaps they would claim that these military assets were assisting with the Israeli military campaign. I could see something like that as some sort of
They are assisting with stealing the oil and helping Israel. No. That's what they got proof of them doing that. They got eyes on them troops. I keep telling people NATO is fighting in Gaza. Well, guess what? It's a shame that they caught NATO slipping and it happened to be some U.S. soldiers and they happen to pay the price of imperialism today.
Unquote justification. Nonetheless, escalation now between Tehran and Washington is going to go dramatically sky high, and it raises questions as well as to what the overall U.S. military posture is. But don't forget, we have tens of thousands of American troops all across this region. And unfortunately, it was basically a matter of time since this happened. We've had so many attacks.
Those people have millions of troops. I've been saying this since the beginning. They got millions of people ready to die today, not tomorrow. They're not worrying about going home. They're ready to be martyrs. They're ready to give their life. NATO cannot put up 1 million. U.S. cannot put up 1 million troops who want to die. I didn't say want to fight. I didn't say want to kill, because we got plenty of people want to kill people and come home and kiss your wife and go back to work and go to the bar and watch football. No. You can't put 1 million people up that want to die. This is it. Kiss your family goodbye. Mama ain't coming home. No. That's why they were never going to win this war. And this is just another sign. Now the U.S., it's like quicksand. They can start struggling harder. That means do something stupid, and they just going to start sinking faster.
Attacks on U.S. troops in bases in Iraq and in Syria. Not to mention the U.S. Navy, which is currently in a tit for tat with the Houthi rebels that, kept saying it only takes one. It only takes one for a U.S. service member. And in this case, this is clearly a very directed attack because you have multiple, more than a dozen U.S. service members who are also injured on top of the 3 that were killed in this drone attack. So there's going to be a lot of questions in the coming days and in the hours. Obviously, Crystal and I will have a show for everybody tomorrow. We're going to break down everything that we know. Very likely we could could see military action actually happen as soon as tonight. It's very possible. We will be monitoring that. We'll bring everybody the breaking news. There are also definitely going to be major calls from U.S. lawmakers about escalating the situation, possibly calling for war with Iran. So it's a dangerous moment here for the world, and all of it, all eyes really are going to be all this. We'll be monitoring the situation for the remainder of the day, and we'll bring everybody updates tomorrow. Just want to say thank you again to our premium members, which enable breaking news segments and things like this. And thank you to our production team.
Breaking news. Moments ago, President Biden confirms at least 3 Americans have been killed and 25 others injured in the Middle East. The attack happened last night on a U.S. outpost along the Syria-Jordan border. President Biden says they are still gathering more facts, but believe the attack came from a suicide drone launched from Syria. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack. This marks the first American deaths in the Middle East since the Israel-Hamas war started. The president says the U.S. will respond at the proper time and manner.
Hello, I'm Mark Brown.
Retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg is with us. He's a former national security advisor to Vice President Mike Pence, also a Fox News contributor. General Kellogg, this is very concerning, this new turn of events here. The commander-in-chief can't lay out his specific plans per se, but he has to take a serious and targeted response. So what might the military reply, if you will, look like, and how many options do we have?
Arthel, thanks for having me. Yeah, this is very, very significant. When you lose Americans, and there's 3 dead, at least 25 wounded that we know of, it is a significant escalation. Look, I go back to what President Trump said in his State of the Union in January of 2020, when he said very clearly, if you attack an American, your life is forfeit. Well, we've just had some Americans killed. And frankly, anybody who didn't see this coming in national security area is a fool. We knew it was going to happen with the amount of attacks that have been occurring. We were just dodging the bullet. We were getting lucky. And it was caused primarily.
Well, if you knew it was going to happen, why didn't you leave? Why did you keep trying to steal the Syrian oil? Why did you keep trying to steal the Iraqi oil? Why did you keep trying to steal their resources? Why didn't you leave their country? It's on record. They've been telling you leave their country. You're not welcome there. You're not fighting ISIS. On record, they say you are ISIS. So if you knew, I'm glad you said that, man, because you're telling yourself, if you knew this was going to come, and why did you leave those U.S. troops in an unwinnable position? You can't win no Middle Eastern war. You couldn't beat the Taliban. These people going to come on TV and talk real tough the next couple of days. They can drop some bombs, send them U.S. troops over there, watch. But this the first little eye-opener for them, please. Them people got drones. They can drop bombs on you, and they just did it, Tower troops.
Primarily because of our normalization of activities. It was like, well, it's kind of okay to attack forces in the Middle East. It's okay to shoot missiles in the ships in the Red Sea.
You do it.
It's okay for China to get involved.
You do it.
With Iran and Saudi Arabia.
You do it.
And conducting peace.
You getting involved. You dropping bombs in Somalia. You dropping bombs on Yemen. You dropping bombs in Syria. You dropping bombs in Iraq. What's good for the goose? They're saying what's good for the goose is good for the gander. That's what they're saying. I hate these U.S. troops have to die for big oil, for the banks, for the small hats. I hate that they just have to lose their life for politicians, and then for cowards like this who never won a war in his life, never came close to come on TV now and demand on the name of the small hats and the Zionists that we got to do something tough. Well, them people ready to do something tough too. They just proved it. And they're not scared of you. Joe Biden just been bombing in Yemen, talking about this was going to show them. Show them what?
We've kind of taken a step back. Now the president's hand, President Biden's hand, is forced. And just a few blocks from here in the White House complex and the Situation Room, I'm sure they're thinking of what they have to do. They're going to have to do what Teddy Roosevelt said, our 26th president. He said, when you strike hard. And he was the one who said, speak softly, but carry a big stick. I do not believe, Arthel, they have got any option but to go into Iran and attack Iranian targets. As Trey said just a minute ago, all of these attacks.
Yeah, this is what Israel wants. I don't think they have any choice but to what? Get their ass wiped out all over the Middle East, attack Iran. Y'all ain't finished off Hamas yet. You can't beat Hamas. You want to attack Iran? See, this is what happened when people are psychopathic maniacs and they can't stand being humiliated. You cannot defeat the little brothers, per se. You want to fight the big brother, Iran, please. You couldn't even beat the Taliban. They didn't have tanks, planes, and barely had goddamn shoes. You see, people like this need to be arrested. Coming on TV, talking about attack deep into Iran. Boy, please, Iranians is in America. You done let 13 million illegals in here. You think them people ain't here right now? These people ought to be ashamed of their goddamn self. For serious business, coward. Talking about attack Iran. Boy, you crazy. Like I said, Iran got 20 million people wanting to die today. How many you got?
Forces in the Middle East, be it Houthis, be it Hezbollah, be it anybody else, they're Iranian backed. And this administration has pulled its punches. And it can't do that anymore. It has to make a hard strike. And here's the problem we've had with normalization. Because when you normalize activities and kind of accept what's going on, now changing that dynamic is really hard. You can't just go tit for tat. You have to go up what's called the escalation ladder and make a significant strike, be it on people, be it on facilities, be it on troops on the field with the Iranians. Has to be something. The Pentagon is going to come up with options, and they're going to decide where they want to go. But my concern is this administration going to take the hard option it needs to take and strike hard against the Iranians. Does that mean personnel? Sure. It could mean everything from going after Ismail Ghani, who's the current leader of the Quds Force, or even the supreme leader, Khomeini, or going after facilities that build drones.
This dude here just said, kill the supreme leader of Iran. This dude here got some, boy, you crazy sitting in your bunker talking tough about killing the supreme leader of Iran. Boy, you crazy? He just laughed when you said that and say, don't do him. He know not what he do. That's what he told his people, to spare ignorant fools like you. Listen, brother, you have been killing Iranians for months now. In Iraq, in Syria, now they have retaliated devastatingly, and now you're talking about we have to show them. No, they just showed you. They just showed you. But now you want more Americans to die for the Zionists. See, they never learned their lesson.
Within Iran,
I want you to look on that board. Look at the screen right now. Look at the screen. Salute, Queen. 159 attacks on U.S. forces. 159 attacks on U.S. forces since October the 17th. In Syria, in Iraq. Now, these is all why the U.S. forces they got so many bases in Syria and Iraq. That's what you should ask yourself. Why are they there? What are they doing? Stealing. This is all places that these people don't want them at. Now, the imperialists and this phony right here who ain't never won a war, but he say he's some type of general or something. They're a loser who shouldn't be on TV talking, and he ain't never won that. Now, he says we got to show them. They attacked you 159 times, bro. And today they killed people. But you're going to show them. It looked like 159 times they were giving you the finger and telling you need to heed the warning. You didn't heed the warning 159, so the 160th time somebody had to die. But you've been killing people throughout these 159 strikes. We have killed their troops, but they held back. Today they said, go all the way. What this fool don't understand is they could have killed me. We could have been waking up to 1,000 troops dead. Now, when some people say, we got bigger weapons, boy, you couldn't defeat the Taliban. That's what you always revert back to that when you hear these people talking shit. They're not beating no Iranians. And them warships out there can get sunk. Come on, man. These people are just, I'm sitting here, I'm laughing inside because they get what they deserve, but a lot of troops, you join the war to pay bills and all that. Now they done got themselves into a little something. Them boys never thought they were finna be going up against those fucking Iranians. They was over there thinking they might have to go slap around some Palestinians. Maybe they wouldn't have faced Hamas. Lord have mercy. They don't want to see Hezbollah. It ain't a U.S. soldier that want to do shit with the Iranians, I'm trying to tell you.
Take out their naval facilities. They're going to have to make those decisions. But if they don't strike hard, they're making a big mistake. And I believe we're going to see a repeat of this in the future.
Yeah, Tehran has made this personal. And so the response has to be personal. But what I do ask, though, what about our allies in the region? I mean, who's on board and what's the current communication between our allied forces?
You know, Arthel, that's a great question. And you need to bring your allies along. But this is an American issue. They have killed Americans. And this is, as you just said, this is personal. And we should lead. And if you want to come with us, come on.
Americans have killed Iranians. You see, his bullshit will never hold up a world court. The world have seen you killed Iranians, not in the U.S. You've killed Iranians in Syria, where they've been up under the welcoming arm of the Syrian government. You still killed them. You killed them in Iraq, where they had permission to be there. You still killed them. Now they've killed your troops in places you don't have permission to be, and now you're pissed. And she tells you, what about your allies? Well, the U.S. don't got no friends in the Middle East. They had a few flunky Arab nations, but right now, none of them people to say one word to Iran. Are you fucking crazy? Iran will get loot. Boy, Iran wish Saudi Arabia, any one of them, Kuwait, would say one word to them, and it'd be over for them. Nigga, they would seize the motherfucking holy mosque. I'm telling you that right now. So the U.S. gonna find out they on their own. Get your Anglo-Saxon friends and come on to the Middle East. They've been waiting on you. This is a trap. Now you take it like a man and, hey, let the whole world know we're not who we used to be. The blacks don't want to come fight for us no more. Hell no, we don't want to go win fighting wars for y'all no goddamn more. You know? Whites don't want to serve no more. They found out y'all just getting them on drugs. Y'all not gonna house them when they come home. Hell no, them hippie white boys don't want to go serve. They homeless when they come home. Mexicans, y'all playing the illegals to put them in here. Remember, they said they want the illegals here so they can fight in the army, because Americans don't want to go over there and get this done to them no more, especially not us. We have a few going to the military, but our uncles, we want us what y'all did on the Vietnam. We said, nah, y'all getting our people on drugs, arresting them when they get back, locking them up. They homeless. White boys getting a taste of that. Y'all have feminized the U.S. ministry, U.S. military. They cross-dressed us. Y'all got transgender generals. You ain't gonna beat nobody in no Middle East. We're no transgender generals.
On with us. But if you don't, we're going to remember who came with us and who didn't. And this is one of those challenges you have as Americans. You can't say, well, let's all get on the same boat and row together. Oh, no. This is our lead. They killed our troops. We're going to respond. If you want to be there, be there. Now, of course, they're reaching out to them. I'm sure they're reaching out to the French and the Brits and the Italians and everybody else. But this is clearly our lead. And
Did you hear them? No, one-on-one. I want to see you versus Iran one-on-one. Why you going to get the usual white supremacists? We're reaching out to the French, the Belgium, the Dutch, the Portuguese, Britain, Italy, Spain. Oh, the same old gang. You heard him. That's his friends. What, that lynch mob of bigots who've been lynching people for hundreds of years? Ha, what a joke. No, they didn't attack the British, the French, the Dutch. They attacked the Americans. When is America going to man up and go take care of business? Do y'all know where Iran at? Y'all need GPS? They waiting on y'all. I'm pretty sure they not high now, bro.
To the allies would be, you'd better get on board, because I'm going to remember quite clearly who was with me and who wasn't with me.
Oh, a threat. A threat. See, that's why you don't got no fucking friends. Y'all got vassal nations. It's like George Bush when he said you with us or against us. Nigga, it's long way from it's 20 years later. Ain't nobody going for that type of shit no more. You can't tell the world you with us or against us. They against you. Do something about it. Bush was like a cowboy. You with us or against you. That's when Putin came to power and said, I'm gonna watch y'all last. Now, that's when Putin seized power, when Bush was talking crazy like that. And he been in power ever since the U.S. said you either with us or against us. Putin said, oh shit, we got to get our shit together. They gonna hit us next. And they had Russia on their motherfucker in their view. They just went knocked off Saddam, then Gaddafi. They wanted to knock off the Kim Jong-un family, and then get Russia and get Assad in Syria. But he just threatened his own allies, man.
We have to make this response.
Absolutely. And if you could give me about 30 or 40 seconds on this, you've got Putin standing by, you've got Xi Jinping standing by. What are they like?
Lady, please. I dare you mention Putin the Great or Xi Jinping, the Chinese emperor. What's wrong with you? You couldn't beat the Taliban. See, this is hypocrisy. Hamas kicking y'all ass over there. Now you done got a little taste of some Iraqi and Syrian militia, and you bring up Putin, who humiliated you in Syria. And don't piss off China now. They looking for a reason to bring Taiwan back into their bosom. But here go American news again, talking tough, bringing up people names they don't have no business bringing up.
Oh, great question, Arthel. They're watching our response, and they're going to key off our response. That's the reason I was very concerned about normalization, because it kind of accepted everything. So they knew they could push, and they push hard. They're going to see what our response is going to be. And if it is not a strong response, we're just opening up ourselves to further aggression by the Iranians or anybody else in the region. So this is a chance for the United States of America, for President Biden to make a strong statement. They're watching. Allies are watching. Adversaries are watching.
This man say Iran gonna be watching. I thought you said Iran did this. No, the Syrians did this to you. Because see, Americans, y'all gotta know the truth. The Syrians want y'all ass out their country. Y'all been stealing oil. You ain't been fighting ISIS because your ass is ISIS, you know. And today we lost three U.S. troops dead, 34 injured, drone attack. White supremacists come on TV, beating their chest, talking crazy, but they act like they don't know where them people at. Don't come on TV. Them people ain't came on TV yet. Look at America snitching. Ain't nobody from Iraq or Syria or Iran ran to no camera. Nigga, they ran to the battlefield. They ran to their pistol. What did the U.S. do? Ran on TV snitching. Oh, somebody killed our people. What handle business? Why are you whining about it?
America will hold those responsible to account after 3 US soldiers were killed and 34 injured in a drone attack on a military base in Jordan near the Syrian border. The White House says the attack was carried out by a radical Iran-backed militant group operating in Syria and Iraq. In a written statement, the president said, America's heart is heavy.
Hell no. This ain't gonna cut it. We need our president to come. His ass supposed to be in front of that sleepy ass nigga. He can't put no words in his mouth. I bet you he couldn't read this statement right here in public. I bet you he couldn't. They telling us what the U.S. president said. I haven't heard him say this. Who wrote this statement? This is bullshit. Sleepy Joe needs to wait. Do he even know that our soldiers been dead because of his actions? Do he know U.S. troops done paid the ultimate price because he would not call for peace in the Middle East? But then here they come. The U.S. president said, we don't know who said this shit. We ain't seen Joe say nothing.
Last night, 3 US service members were killed and many wounded during an unmanned aerial drone attack on our forces stationed in northeast Jordan near the Syria border. While we are still gathering the facts of this attack, we know it was carried out by radical Iran-backed militant groups operating in Syria and Iraq. The 3 American service members we lost were patriots in the highest sense, and their ultimate sacrifice will never be forgotten by our nation. We will carry on their commitment to fight terrorism and have no doubt we will hold all those responsible.
This is the problem. The people, country you was in, stealing their shit, they saw you as the terrorist. And we need to put, when you and somebody, you know, a real hero is who fight in your country. There has never been no heroic people who go to other people's country and kill, steal, and destroy. What the hell type of vigilante BS is that? Oh, no, we don't like that type of stuff. Shame on you. We don't want no U.S. troops to die somewhere else being a pirate. We don't want nobody else over there overseas stealing people oil and they begging you to leave their country. What happened to sovereign countries? U.S. say they fighting terrorism. The whole world know that's a lie. You created terrorism. You are the terrorist. You can't show me for the last 8 months one time the U.S. been fighting ISIS, but they in Syria and they in Iraq. I thought you got to fight ISIS. Why are you near the oil fields? That's where ISIS at? Oh, yeah. BS. And this is exposed. This don't expose the U.S. Leave Syria. Quit stealing. Turn from your wicked ass ways.
To account at a time and in a manner our choosing. Our Middle East correspondent Alistair Bunkle is in Jerusalem. Alistair, what more can you tell us?
Well, this attack happened last night. It's understood that the soldiers who were wounded and the 3 of those who were killed were sleeping at the time. It was in an outpost near the Jordanian-Syrian border. The Americans have had forces based around that area for many years now, dating back at least until the time when the Syrian civil war was at its height and American forces, along with others, were fighting against Islamic State cells in Syria. They are the first.
That's a lie. They were arming the Islamic State cells in Syria. That's why Russia stepped in, because the U.S. under Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton They were ISIS. They were ISIS. They weren't fight. They never were fighting ISIS. That is a damn lie. General Suleiman, who was actually putting together the resistance against ISIS from Iran, who told Putin to come to the Middle East, to come to Syria and help Assad, which changed everything when they defeated ISIS, was killed by Trump in the U.S. for defeating ISIS. Then they got the nerve to say with a straight face, they're there fighting ISIS. This is the bullshit. And U.S. who is still going for that type of crap? Why can't the powerful U.S. defeat ISIS? The same bullshit they was pulling in Africa, in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, until they found out. No, these people arming those jihadists. They kicked out the French, brought in Wagner, then they defeated those groups in months. Shit the French and the U.S. said they couldn't do in 10 years. Because they all, and it's strange how these terrorist groups, they love to steal resources. They jihad is all about gold and oil and diamonds and murder. They want all of the finest resources in the world. That's a lie. It's the Europeans want that shit. And they just send them people to your goddamn country. So whenever they're there, then they got to come in and seize that stuff because they can't let terrorists get that stuff, you know?
Service personnel to have been killed since the Hamas attacks on October the 7th here in Israel. The attack itself, which we understand is yet to be attributed to an exact group, although as the statement you read out from President Biden makes clear, they believe it is an Iranian-backed group operating out of Syria. The attack is yet another that is part of a wider campaign against US forces based around the region. The Americans have been wholeheartedly supportive of the Israeli campaign to fight and hopefully, from an Israeli point of view at least, defeat Hamas in Gaza. And as a result, the Americans, who have tens of thousands of troops based in the Middle East, have had attacks themselves. A lot of it's gone under the radar, to be quite honest. It hasn't been entirely underreported, but there's been quite a number of attacks, particularly in Iraq and northeast Syria. What has been much more public, the attacks on US interests, in particular in the Red Sea, which is an ongoing issue for America, also for Britain as well, who have forces there. But this is going to be seen as an escalation. And the Americans have made it very clear that whether it's the Houthis in Yemen or any other Iranian-backed militia, they will respond, and as Joe Biden said in his statement, at a time and a moment of their choosing. But I think it is indicative of what is happening along the narrow and small Gaza Strip is having major reverberations around the wider region, not just towards Israel, but towards any of Israel's allies as well, of which the United States is the most senior partner.
Yeah, we'll make you laugh, make you motherfucking cry. You're not supposed to be there. You're supposed to have been leaving there. They didn't want you there. You're stealing there. You're unwelcome there. You are the terrorist there. And it's a sad day that so far 3 U.S. servicemen have to pay with their life. 35 wounded. Who knows how serious those wounds are? Probably few of them probably never be the same ever again. All for the bankers, the small hats, the Zionists, for crooked politicians. Nothing honorable was going on now. The honorable part comes from people who was fighting and defending their homeland. That's honorable.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. I'm Lexi Petrovich. We are following some breaking news out of the Middle East right now, and it is some very sad news. 3 U.S. service members have been killed and 25 others injured in a drone attack that happened in Jordan. Let's pull up a couple of these statements that are coming in right now. First, with Fox's Trey Yingst saying that 3 U.S. service members have been killed, 25 others injured, and also showing how much things have escalated in the Middle East. And this is an example of just that. We're also hearing from President Biden, who just released a statement confirming this news. And here is what he had to say. Today, America's heart is heavy. Last night, 3 U.S. service members were killed and many wounded during an unmanned aerial drone attack on our forces stationed in northeast Jordan near the Syria border. While we're still gathering the facts of this attack, we know it was carried out by radical Iran-backed militant groups operating in Syria and Iraq. Jill and I join the families and friends of our fallen and Americans across the country in grieving the loss of these warriors in this despicable and wholly unjust attack. These service members embodied the very best of our nation, unwavering in their bravery, unflinching in their duty, unbending in their commitment to our country, risking their own safety for the safety of their fellow Americans and our allies and partners with whom we stand in the fight against terrorism. It's a fight we will not seize. The 3 American service members who were lost were patriots in the highest sense, and their ultimate sacrifice will never be forgotten by our nation. Together, we will carry and keep the sacred obligation we bear to their families. We will strive to be worthy of their honor and valor. We will continue and carry on their commitment to fight terrorism, and have no doubt we will hold all of those responsible to account at a time and a manner of our choosing. So we are working to get more information here, but President Biden has confirmed this news. The U.S. Central Command as well confirming this today, that 3 U.S. service members were killed and 25 others injured in an attack in Jordan near the Syria border. We are working to get more information here. Of course, we'll continue to keep you updated on this tragic breaking news out of the Middle East. In the meantime, we want to continue on here with more.
Yeah, it's tragic that Sleepy Joe still won't come tell us what happened. All these letters that say they from him. We don't know that. Where is the U.S. president in a time like this? Huh? When he didn't want peace in the Middle East, now U.S. troops is falling by the wayside. It's been 159 attacks. 160 was the day U.S. troops lost their life. Everybody been saying it was going here, but they need to listen to the military men like Colonel McGregor, Scott Ritter, who's saying this is a trap. It only going to get worse for the U.S. They can't win any Middle East war.
The U.S. says 3 of its troops have been killed and dozens more wounded in a drone attack on a base in northeastern Jordan. President Joe Biden blamed Iran-backed militants for the attack, which took place near the border with Syria and Iraq. He vowed to hold the perpetrators to account. Media reports say the drone struck near a barracks at the base. It is the first time American military personnel have been killed by hostile fire in the region since the start of the Israel-Hamas war. Let's get more with Washington Bureau Chief Ines Paul. Ines, it's good to see you. What more do we know at this point? This is, of course, a developing story.
Well, the killing of the 3 Americans in Jordan near the border with Syria is definitely a significant escalation of an already precarious situation in the Middle East. This is the first time, as you just mentioned, that U.S. troops have been killed by enemy fire in the Middle East since the beginning of the Gaza war. And the prompt reaction of President Biden kind of underlines the significance of this attack. He promised to hold those responsible for the attack, I quote him, to account at a time and in a manner.
Yeah, I want y'all to remember that. Remember what he said. Remember what Biden said, and remember this day. Biden said he was going to hold the people who done this accountable. I'm telling you, anything he do, they going to do it too. As much pressure that the U.S. think they imperialistic ass finna put on the Middle East, they're going to put more on him. They ain't even felt no pressure from Iran yet. They keep getting picked off by militia groups. They stuck in a tie with Hamas. Let's tell the truth. Israel and the U.S. is in a tie. Nobody's winning the war. It's a tie. Nigga, tie go to the militia, Hamas. Now they've been humiliated today, and they want to make us think that we're going to teach. You've been saying that. You've been saying that. I believe you getting taught a lesson, that you're not who you think you are, and that you're going to get kicked out the Middle East real fucking soon.
Our choosing. And he also said, I quote him here as well, we know it was carried out by radical Iran-backed militant groups operating in Syria and Iraq.
Okay, if you know who done it, why you ain't bomb them? Why did you all run to the news stations? I mean, why didn't you just immediately bomb them? If you know it was them, because you don't know it was them, you just want to put Iran in it. Well, bomb the people who done it. Don't come talk to us, the people. Why we're making us, getting us worried and nervous? Why you didn't take care of your business? Why we didn't wake up to you done took care of all the ones who did this?
You mentioned that this will lead most likely to an escalation, but this is also not the first time a U.S. military base has been attacked in the region. Do we? What can we anticipate at this point, or are we still waiting for more information?
Correct. U.S. officials have repeatedly said that they do not want to see the increasingly high tensions across the Middle East broaden into a regional war. And indeed, there have been more.
The actions didn't show that. The actions didn't show they didn't want to see the hostilities increase. Every time Israel did something that now the world court said was likely genocide, the U.S. came out and backed that genocide. Almost 30,000 people dead, 19,000 women and kids dead. The U.S. never came out and gave a damn. That's why this is happening. So U.S. trying to say they didn't want to see this happening. Well, if they would have came out for peace, if they would have been vetoing ceasefires, the Americans would still be alive if Joe Biden was a real damn president who didn't allow war crimes to take place. But since he's a coward, since he bought and paid for it, he corrupt, and American politicians is corrupt, and the military generals and they weak. They can't come up with a winning plan, but say they goddamn life. Then the humiliation is what is facing them. More humiliation.
More than 160 or so attacks on U.S. and coalition forces in Iraq and Syria since
100 and something attacks. Who the hell you think you are? That's what every one of those attacks was. And they tried to play it off. They tried to act like it was nothing. Oh, it was really nothing. Tell it to those U.S. troops who lost their goddamn life while Joe Biden's sitting there playing with them. Tell it to the U.S. troops in Syria who just sitting ducks. That's what Conor McGregor and Scott Ritter said. They sitting ducks, and there's nothing the U.S. can do in the Middle East to make it any better for them. Come on, they said that. This ain't what I'm telling you. It's some of your great white military strategists that they don't want to hear from. They're saying it. It's only humiliation gonna come. And look what happened today, humiliation from a militia group. A militia group calls you that. Now you talking to Iran? Come on, man, let's stop this shit.
The war started. However, until today, officials have described the constant volley of drones, rockets, and missiles as unsuccessful because they have not caused serious injury or damage to infrastructure. That's
a lie. They wasn't trying to cause. Those were warnings. And even Scott McGregor, that's what Conor McGregor took. Those were warnings they were giving you, and you didn't heed it. We had soldiers got great brain injury from those attacks. I told you, we don't know how serious some of that is. Some of them might have lost their life. But just because what happened to us today never happened before, that never meant they wasn't capable of doing it to you. Look at the arrogance of the U.S. No, but you didn't heed after 159 attacks. You didn't heed the warning. So like I said, 160, do you get it now? No. Like a pain freak, and in the good book it say that Yahweh had to harden the heart of Pharaoh. Are you Pharaoh? Is your heart being hardened? Good, because that means you're going to get everything that's coming to you.
This, of course, has changed with today. And given the increasing political pressure President Biden is facing from the Republican Party in this election year, which has just started, it indeed doesn't seem unlikely that the US will increase their military involvement. And with that, of course, comes an increasing risk that the conflict will spread throughout the whole Middle East.
Many factors in a very tense situation. Thank you so much for following that developing story for us. Ines Paul in DC.
See, this is a very serious situation here, man. You see, when you're a bully who's been bullying on people, you can't let the world know that you're not who you used to be. You see, you're not as strong, not as wise, you're not as dedicated to the slaughter. You're still bloodthirsty, but you ain't capable of killing like you used to be able to kill. Now, there's other killers on the block. There's other big-time killers, you know. And do you still got that bloodthirst? No, the U.S. ain't ready to die. They're not ready to die for it. I keep telling y'all, man.
The 3 U.S. troops were killed by an unmanned drone at a small military outpost in Jordan near the Syrian border. The killings could significantly escalate an already volatile military situation in the Middle East. And our correspondent Jonathan Rugman is here with us. Jonathan, what is the latest?
Well, American officials are saying that this drone appeared to come from Syria across the Jordanian border. As you say, 3 American soldiers killed, 25 injured. President Biden has issued a statement saying America's heart is heavy. very clearly laying out the blame, accusing radical militants backed by Iran and saying, we will hold all those responsible to account at a time and in a manner of our choosing. So I think we can expect a military response pretty quickly. If you look at the map here, you can see where we're talking about. The name of this American military outpost is called Tower 22. It's a patrol and operations base right up by the Jordan's border with Syria. The Americans reckon there have been about 180 attempts to kill American soldiers by these Iranian-backed groups since the October the 7th attacks on Israel. And you may remember that back in October, President Biden wrote to Ayatollah Khamenei and said, stop it, stop doing this, we will respond. He hasn't done that, or at least the militias backed by the Iranians have not stopped. There was an attack on Christmas Day on American troops in Iraq. And so I think President Biden is now under enormous pressure to respond.
So you think there'll be a military response to you from the US? And how will all this go down in the United States?
Well, you remember he was the head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, sort of Foreign Legion, if you like. He was assassinated on the orders of President Trump with a drone in Iraq in 2020 for doing less than what we've just seen happen in the last 24 hours. Yes, it feeds into American election politics. President Trump, if he is the Republican nominee, will make being tough on Iran a central pillar of his foreign policy. And so Joe Biden is under it.
No, that's a lie. He gonna talk tough on Iran, but he don't want no war with Iran. That's why he killed General Soleimani. They tried to have Trump go to war with Iran. He said, hell no. Then he said, give me a lesser choice. We need something lesser than war. I don't want war. I want business. They said, well, okay, here. They put him in the trick bag. They say, now you got to at least do this. Now he's been attacking our troops since the Gulf War and blah, 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 blah. Trump fell for that attack, General Soleimani, and it's been held on the U.S. in the Middle East ever since, and it's not going to change. They not want it there anymore.
Under enormous pressure to show that he can be tough when he needs to be tough in an election year. And of course, it also puts pressure on these talks that apparently took place in Paris today about a possible ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, because the Iranians are saying, as are the Houthis in Yemen, who've been attacking shipping in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, stop the conflict, stop the killing, and the likelihood of an escalation or de-escalation is likely to increase.
Okay, Jonathan Rugman, thanks very much for that update on that breaking story. Thank you. Now, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has begged member states to continue giving financial support
So we woke up to some very shocking information. I'm gonna wait for it to keep funneling out and bring y'all some more, but it just means it's gonna heat up more in the Middle East now. The U.S. got to pretend like they strong.
In a recent update from the American news network NBC, the Chinese Defense Ministry spokesperson explicitly refuted claims suggesting that China had exported arms to Hamas in Gaza. The denial came in response to reports indicating the use of Chinese-manufactured weapons in the Gaza Strip. The spokesperson maintained that China had not supplied any arms to Hamas, addressing concerns raised by the international community regarding the origin of certain weapons observed in the conflict. The statement from the Chinese Defense Ministry spokesperson further clarified China's stance on its involvement in the Israel-Palestine conflicts. According to the spokesperson, China emphasized that it had consistently provided humanitarian assistance to Gaza, including essential resources such as food, healthcare, and first aid. The statement did stress, though, that China had not supplied any weaponry to the area. The spokesman summarized China's foreign policy strategy, which is based on 3 core ideas. China declared its commitment to strengthening the recipient nation's legal capacity for self-defense. Its pledge to uphold the region's security, stability, and tranquility came next. The statement also emphasized China's commitment to the idea of non-interference in other nations' domestic affairs. Nevertheless, what is the truth in all of this? Is China hiding something? Stay tuned as we delve into pending issues. Let's backtrack for a moment. What is the origin of these allegations? According to a report from the Israel Defense Forces, IDF, it has been asserted that Hamas in Gaza is utilizing top-quality Chinese weapons. The inventory reportedly includes assault rifles, grenade launchers, and advanced communications equipment. The IDF report highlights an upgrade in the weaponry and gear used by Hamas, indicating a shift towards more sophisticated and advanced armaments. Israel's intelligence agencies have been closely monitoring these developments, noting the acquisition of Chinese-manufactured weapons by Hamas. The discovery of Chinese weaponry in the possession of Hamas raises significant questions regarding how these arms reached the militant group. The potential involvement of external actors in the supply chain of these sophisticated weapons could strain diplomatic relations between Israel and China. Israeli intelligence sources have noted a notable enhancement in the weaponry and technology acquired by Hamas, prompting concerns about the origin of the Chinese supplies. The question arises as to whether these weapons were directly sourced from China or if they were obtained through an intermediary third party. The uncovered weapons, including QBZ assault rifles and QLZ-87 automatic grenade launchers, signify a significant enhancement in Hamas's firepower. The IDF issued a warning, noting that the weapons stockpile is accompanied by intelligence and communications technology built to operate inside Hamas's complex tunnel network. Israel believed that with this weaponry, Hamas may launch surprise strikes against Israeli soldiers. China's initial response to the Israel-Hamas conflict exhibited a cautious and equivocal stance in assigning blame. Beijing refrained from making definitive statements until a day after Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th. At that point, China called on the relevant parties to cease hostilities and emphasized the imperative of a two-state solution. Notably, in its response, China did not explicitly condemn the Palestinian armed group or mention it by name, demonstrating a diplomatic approach that sought to avoid direct alignment with any specific party involved in the conflict. Within a week of the initial attack, there was a noticeable shift in China's stance. Chinese diplomats began characterizing Israel's bombardment of Gaza as a form of collective punishment. They asserted that while countries have the right to self-defense, such actions must be guided by international law and should not be carried out at the expense of innocent civilians. After the initial response and the shift in stance, Beijing has consistently advocated for multilateral and peaceful solutions to the Israel-Palestine conflict. China has aligned itself with the diplomatic approaches promoted by the United Nations, particularly within the framework of the powerful Security Council. As China assumed a leading role in the Security Council, it emphasized the importance of collective efforts to address the complex issues underlying the conflict. China's stance on the Israel-Palestine conflict has become a subject of contention among analysts. Some observers perceive a distinct pro-Palestinian orientation in Beijing's foreign policy, suggesting a deliberate alignment with the Palestinian cause. This viewpoint sees China as actively supporting the Palestinian perspective, both diplomatically and rhetorically. On the other hand, an alternative perspective posits that China's position may be more reflective of a global trend in public opinion that has grown increasingly critical of Israel's military actions, particularly in response to the bombing campaign. Before the recent conflict, China had maintained amicable relations with both Israel and the Palestinians. This diplomatic approach is rooted in historical context, especially during the Mao Zedong era in the 1960s. At that time, Beijing viewed the Palestinian cause as an integral component of the global campaign against imperialism. China provided support to armed factions of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, aligning with the broader anti-colonial and anti-imperialist sentiments that characterized Chinese foreign policy during that period. Throughout subsequent decades, China continued to engage with both Israel and the Palestinians, adapting its foreign policy to evolving geopolitical dynamics. China's emphasis on non-interference and respect for national sovereignty allowed it to maintain relations with diverse nations in the Middle East, including those with differing stances on the Israel-Palestine issue. China has expanded its oil purchases significantly, including large quantities from Iran, a notable supporter of Hamas. Additionally, China has strengthened its energy partnerships with key mediator Qatar and other Gulf states, such as Saudi Arabia. Under the leadership of President Xi Jinping, China's comments on the Israel-Palestine conflict have demonstrated a level of consistency with its past positions on Gaza. According to the China Project, China's stance, as articulated in 2008, 2014, and 2021, has typically involved calling for an end to violence and advocating for a mediated resolution to the conflict. In 2008, former top Chinese diplomat Qin Gang articulated China's stance on the Israel-Palestine conflict by calling for an end to actions that cause injuries and deaths to ordinary people. Qin Gang emphasized the need for all parties involved to exercise maximum restraint and to settle differences through dialogue. An interesting question arises. What does China want from the Israel-Hamas war? As the conflict between Israel and Hamas escalates, an unexpected development has unfolded with China taking on the role of a peace broker. China's top diplomat, Wang Yi, recently engaged in discussions about the conflict with officials in Washington, reflecting the growing concern about the potential for a larger regional war. In response to these fears, the United States has expressed its commitment to collaborating with China to find a resolution to the ongoing crisis. In addition to engaging with U.S. officials, China's top diplomat, Wang Yi, has extended diplomatic efforts by holding discussions with his Israeli and Palestinian counterparts. These talks come in the aftermath of China's Middle East Special Envoy, Zai Jun, who flew to the region for meetings with Arab leaders. China's involvement has not been limited to bilateral discussions. The nation has emerged as one of the most vocal proponents of a ceasefire in United Nations meetings, signaling a commitment to advocating for peace on the international stage. China holds a significant position as Iran's largest trade partner, with a deepening economic relationship between the two nations. Notably, earlier this year, Beijing played a pivotal role in facilitating a rare détente between Iran and Saudi Arabia, contributing to regional diplomatic efforts. In the current context of the Israel-Palestine conflict, Tehran has expressed its readiness to enhance communication with China to find a resolution for the situation in Gaza. China is in a tricky spot because it has always supported the Palestinians in their struggles. This support goes back to the time of Mao Zedong, the founder of the Chinese Communist Party. Mao sent weapons to the Palestinians to show that China was against imperialism. He even compared Israel and Taiwan to being bases of Western imperialism because both countries had strong support from the United States. Nowadays, China has been careful in its diplomacy. It wants good relationships with countries like Israel and Saudi Arabia for economic reasons. At the same time, it keeps supporting the Palestinians by expressing concerns about their rights and well-being. In the subsequent decades following the era of Mao Zedong, China underwent significant economic reforms, opening up to the world and establishing normalized relations with Israel. Today, the two countries maintain a substantial billion-dollar trade relationship, indicative of their deepening economic ties. Despite its economic engagement with Israel, China has remained steadfast in its political support for the Palestinians. Chinese officials, including President Xi Jinping, have consistently emphasized the importance of an independent Palestinian state in their remarks on the latest Israel-Palestine conflict. In the present scenario, Beijing has become significantly reliant on foreign oil imports, and approximately half of this supply is estimated to originate from the Gulf region. This dependence reflects the critical role that Middle Eastern countries play in meeting China's energy needs. The Middle East's increasing importance as a vital energy source has led to the region becoming a key player in China's ambitious Belt and Road Initiative. The Belt and Road Initiative, a flagship foreign and economic policy of China, aims to enhance connectivity and cooperation between countries through infrastructure development and economic partnerships. Middle Eastern nations have become active participants in the BRI, leveraging their strategic geographical positions and abundant resources to contribute to the initiative's success. As China pursues its vision of economic expansion and global connectivity, the Gulf region's role in supplying energy resources and participating in BRI projects has strengthened diplomatic and economic ties between China and Middle Eastern countries. The ongoing Israel-Palestine conflict provides China with a strategic opportunity to enhance its global reputation and influence. The timing is noteworthy, as it aligns with China's broader narrative of presenting itself as a more appealing global leader compared to the United States. Throughout the year, Beijing has actively promoted an alternative vision of a world order led by China, positioning itself as a constructive force in international affairs, while criticizing what it perceives as the shortcomings of U.S. leadership. Thank you for
This is CNN Breaking News.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Frederica Whitfield. We'll join Fareed Zakaria GPS in a moment, but right now we've got this breaking news. 3 U.S. troops were killed and at least 24 more injured in a drone attack on a small U.S. outpost in Jordan near the border with Syria and Iraq. This is the first time U.S. troops have been killed by enemy fire in the Middle East since the beginning of the war in Gaza, October 7th. It also marks a significant escalation of an already precarious situation in the Middle East. President Biden reacting a short time ago, vowing the U.S. will hold those responsible to account. We've got full coverage of this breaking story. Natasha Bertrand is in Washington. Priscilla Alvarez is with President Biden in South Carolina. And Ben Wiedemann is in Beirut. So, Natasha, you first. What are we learning about the attack?
It's a very serious moment for the U.S. military, for President Biden, for the administration writ large, because this is the first time that U.S. service members have actually been killed from hostile fire since the war in Gaza began and sparked all of these tensions throughout the Middle East. Now, we're learning that these 3 U.S. service members, they were killed after a drone struck a base in northeast Jordan, right on the border of Syria. And it also wounded, we are told now, upwards of 30 other U.S. service members. That number is likely to continue to rise as these service members seek treatment for symptoms that are consistent with traumatic brain injury, according to 2 U.S. officials that we spoke to in the last hour. Now, this is a really high number of individuals killed and wounded in this kind of attack. Previously, when these kinds of attacks by these Iran-backed militias have occurred, targeting U.S. and coalition bases in Iraq and Syria, there have been a number of injuries, but most of them have been minor. The most extensive of those injuries being traumatic brain injuries, for example. But never before, since these attacks started in October, have we seen U.S. service members actually be killed in one of these drone and rocket attacks that have been launched by these militant groups that are supported by Iran in Iraq and Syria. So the U.S., of course, taking this extremely seriously. We got a statement from Central Command.
Oh, these people are taking it extremely serious. They don't want you in their country. It's just so crazy that we keep hearing about Ukraine got the right for sovereignty. You know, Ukraine is an independent nation. World War III over Ukraine. While the U.S. sits in Syria's oil fields, in the Iraqi oil fields, stealing their wealth. And now they've been attacked and they act like somebody doing something. This is crazy. That's why I say the Congressional Black Coons should be ashamed of themselves, because they absolutely imperialism. You going along with this? You going along with imperialism, man. Period.
And we also have a statement from President Biden acknowledging this, and from the Vice President Kamala Harris. Remains to be seen how the U.S. is going to respond. But we are told that as of right now, of those U.S. service members who were wounded, at least 3 of them were evacuated for medical treatment. So their injuries serious enough to have to actually be removed and medevaced out.
And Natasha, what are the options on how the U.S. might respond?
Well, previously, in the kind of over 150 attacks on U.S. and coalition bases in Iraq and Syria that we have seen since October by these Iran-backed militant groups, the U.S. has responded a number of times by striking these militant groups in Iraq and Syria kind of on an individual basis, targeting their infrastructure, targeting certain militant groups, killing several of those militants in strikes that the U.S. military has carried out. But it's unclear at this point whether the U.S.
When they kill you back, you get upset. When they kill you back in their homeland, they didn't kill nobody in America. See, this is the arrogance. They kill you in their country there where they don't want you. And then now America is pissed off, demanding war. Well, they could get pissed and demand whatever they want. They couldn't beat the Taliban, so no one's scared of them. And no one's worried about anything. Nobody in that region is thinking, I wonder what America's going to do next. None of them. They don't care. They want you to just please engage them. Stop hiding out. Please get off them boats. Please, that's what they want. But y'all on TV, y'all done put them poor U.S. troops in dangerous way, because they not going to defeat nobody over there. They just sitting ducks. And it's obvious now.
U.S. is going to feel like it has to go further this time, simply because 3 U.S. service members were killed, again, in a first that we have seen since this war began.
All right, Natasha, thank you. Priscilla Alvarez traveling with President Biden. How has he reacted to this?
Well, President Biden releasing a statement this morning in which he said the administration is still gathering the facts, but also suggesting that the U.S. will retaliate. Let me read part of that statement to you. It says, quote, Today, America's heart is heavy. While we are still gathering the facts of this attack, we know it was carried out by radical Iran-backed militant groups operating in Syria and Iraq. He goes on.
Now, how do you know it was radical Iran-backed groups? You still gathering the facts. No, you just want to blame Iran. But that's how they use words. Iranian-backed groups who are located in Syria and Iraq. You mean Iraqis and Iranians, indigenous people who don't want you in their country, who are fighting you? Why is the Ukrainians heroes for trying to fight the Russians, but Iraq, they terrorists, or in Syria, they terrorists if they try to fight the invader Americans? You see, the invaders are being attacked, but they trying to act like they the goddamn victim.
On to later say the 3 American service members we lost were patriots in the highest sense, and their ultimate sacrifice will never be forgotten by our nation. Together, we will keep the sacred obligation we bear to, their families. We will strive.
We will never forget. Yeah, please, a lot of them people homeless when they get back over here. They don't give a damn about them people. Them people, more U.S. troops commit suicide, more U.S. troops die after committing suicide than die in the wars. They come home and they hate themselves. They can't believe what they did for bankers. The government don't give a damn about them, and then they kill themselves. But here Joe Biden, that he love them, they'll never be forgotten. All of them BS that don't mean nothing to them people. They gone. The family should want to hear that shit, But more American nonsense. This didn't have to happen. All America got to do is say you want peace negotiation in Israel and with Palestine. Leave out of Syria, quit stealing their oil, leave out of Iraq. If you leave out of Syria, if you leave out of Iraq, you won't be attacked. I can guarantee that. You sign up for some peace in Palestine and Israel, then you won't be attacked. But if you don't leave out of Syria, if you don't leave out of Iraq, if you don't want no peace, then what are we talking about? You're going to get this.
Is worthy of their honor and valor. And he concludes, we will carry on their commitment to fight terrorism and have no doubt we will hold all those responsible to account.
Fight terrorism? Why are you stealing the oil, man? Could you please ask them people why they stealing oil? That ain't fighting no terrorism. You're stealing Syrians' oil and Iraq's oil. Yes, you are. You're not fighting no. You see, when you're stealing people resources, those people see you as the terrorist. You are the terrorist in their eyes. No matter what the white supremacists and they bootlicking, buck dancing house niggas, the congressional black coons say and how they try to spin it. When you're in somebody else's country stealing their resources, you are the radical terrorist.
To account at a time and in a manner of our choosing. Now, we know, too, from the White House that President Biden had been briefed this morning by his national security team about the attacks. That includes by Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. And of course, U.S. officials have been increasingly concerned about escalating tensions in the Middle East as there has been an increase in attacks in Iraq, Syria, Yemen, and Lebanon. Just this morning, we heard from President Biden's military advisor in a pre-recorded interview with ABC saying that there were concerns and they were trying to avoid broadening any conflict in the Middle East. And he said that his advice to the president up until this point was to protect U.S. forces and take away Hamas's capability. Now, again, President Biden suggesting that they will retaliate. What that looks like in the days to come is unclear, but this is certainly a concerning development for the White House. Fred.
All right, Priscilla Alvarez, thank you so much. To Ben Wiedemann now in Beirut. Ben, what does this add to an already very tense situation in the region?
Well, really, this just re-emphasizes just how dangerous a situation the United States has put it in. It's got troops sprawled across the region. It's got several thousand troops in Jordan. It's got 900 troops in Syria, 2,500 in Iraq. And we've seen that since the 17th of October, there have been, with the exception of not counting the one today, 158 attacks on U.S. forces. And the U.S. is basically engaged in a low-intensity regional war. It has attacked targets in Syria, in Iraq, and in Yemen. And this is probably only going to intensify. I mean, you've got basically four very dangerous flashpoints. You have the border between Lebanon and Israel, where since the 8th of October, Israel and Hezbollah have been exchanging fire. Today as well, you have Syria, where we've seen U.S. forces targeted multiple times, Iraq, and of course the situation in Yemen, where the Houthis are targeting navigation in the Red Sea. And the United States clearly has three of those four flashpoints. The United States has become directly involved, targeted by its foes, and responding to them. This is significant given that 3 U.S. service people were killed. That's the first time, although 2 U.S. service people were killed in the Red Sea in an operation, but it's not clear if that was due to hostilities or an accident. But certainly the stage is set for an escalation. And keep in mind that from the perspective of this part of the world, the United States, because of its very close ties with Israel, because of the fact it provides monetary support, diplomatic support, and weapons to Israel in this war in Gaza, that many see it as an active participant in that war. And rather, for instance, if you're a militia in Iraq trying to hit Israel, it's much easier to hit the closest ally of Israel.
Why were you so close to them? Why can Syrians hit you? Why can Iraqis hit you? Because you're stealing their oil. They can reach out and touch you because you're near them. They didn't touch America. You're stealing their shit and you got hit near them. That's the truth. They need to put that out there. Why won't America leave these people's country? They don't want them now.
That's the United States. And they're a very easy target given how many U.S. troops are in the region, where they're deployed. For instance, in Syria, they're essentially surrounded by hostile forces, ISIS, the Syrian government, Iranian-backed militias. And in Iraq, it's not.
Ain't no ISIS. You see, I used to throw ISIS in there. No, ISIS is with the U.S. The U.S. and ISIS are based together. They're allies against the Syrian government. That's who the U.S. is fighting. Iran and the Syrian government and the Russians in Syria. No ISIS. That's who they were fighting. That's what they're doing in Iraq. They're fighting the Iraqi government, not ISIS. ISIS is a myth, like Trump said. It's creation of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. And Gaddafi told them that, and then they killed him.
Dissimilar, and therefore the United States is in a very precarious situation. And as we heard President Biden saying that the United States will respond at a time and in a manner of its choosing, no matter what that response will be, it will probably only make the situation even more dangerous. Frederica?
Ben Wiedemann in Beirut, thank you so much. Back to you, Natasha Bertrand in Washington for final question. Again, a recap, 3 U.S. troops killed, up to 30 wounded. It's a very sizable attack, the largest that we've seen since the conflict began October 7. How might this impact whether there might be any more deployments of U.S. personnel to the region?
You know, it's a great question, and that has to be something that the Biden administration is now considering, although we have to remember that the U.S. actually surged U.S. personnel to the region following the October 7th attack on Israel because precisely they envisioned that tensions could continue to rise, and they explicitly warned other countries, other entities not to get involved in this conflict. So you had an aircraft carrier there, you had U.S. personnel surge to the region, and it doesn't appear at this point like there are any imminent plans to pull these U.S. forces out. But of course, that is something that the Pentagon is going to have to be weighing here as they decide how to move forward with the response, Frederica.
And just one more thing, if I could say on this, I'll just drop this, Tamara, in the private chat here, and if you could throw it up on the screen. This is a piece I did earlier this week, which is about the interviews or leaks that unnamed Israeli generals, we're not talking about like low-level soldiers, we're talking about generals, gave to the New York Times to basically say, we're losing the war on the ground and we need a way out and we need a diplomatic way out. Basically, there's an internal war in Israel, an internal battle among the political and civilian leadership, between the political leadership that wants to continue the war forever because their personal fate is tied to it and the cost of admitting defeat is so high, and the military, which has to deal with the fact that they are losing so many men, killed, injured, so much equipment, the collapse in their morale, the collapse in their fighting ability. And they're going to the New York Times, and I read that, and that's what I say in the article. They're basically saying to the United States, hey, help us stop this war. So far, the Biden administration is all in, and they are not doing anything to stop the war. But even the Israeli generals are begging the United States, save us from ourselves. And that is just a sign of how badly they're doing. Of course, the thing we can't forget is that anytime they lose on the battlefield against these brave fighters, these brave, well-trained fighters, they take it out on the civilians. And every day, despite that disgusting headline that people saw, the New York Times claimed that the death rate in Gaza had fallen, as if we were talking about an epidemic or something and not a genocide. But it hasn't fallen. I mean, the number of people they're killing is still 150, 200 people a day, far above the levels of any other conflict this century, according to the numbers that were published by Oxfam a couple of weeks ago. So whenever they lose against soldiers, they take it out on babies.
Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our
המלחמה ב-7 לאוקטובר נחת עלינו. קיבלנו אסון, לא רוצה לחזור על זה, כשל טוטלי. ועכשיו אנחנו נכנסים...
Now listen to this Israeli general say, they fell into a trap. They can't defeat Hamas.
נלחמים נגד חמאס. רבותיי, המנהרות לא בישראל, המנהרות זה ברצועת עזה. הם בנו אותם במשך 20 שנה, הם חיכו לנו, הם פיתו אותנו, חיכו מתי נעבור בהמוננו לשם, כן? עכשיו, אני כמהנדס אפילו, שעסקתי בתחומים רבים בצבא, אני נדהם מעוצמת הבינוי שלהם, התחכום שלהם, של המנהרות האלה ורשת המנהרות האלה. צבא ההגנה לישראל לא היה מוכן לחפש או להשמיד מנהרות. אין לו צבא כזה. הצבא שלנו הוא צבא יבשתי, לא צבא שמחפש במנהרות מחבלים. לכן זה לקח הרבה זמן, לכן זה לקח לאט, תוך כדי מלחמה למדו. שי וטל, שימו לב מי ההרוגים הכי הרבה. יחידות 601 וגדודי הנדסה ופרמדיקים שבאים להציל אותם. אלה האנשים הכי הרבה הרוגים. צבא ההגנה לישראל, לדעתי, היה משכיל עכשיו, בשעה הזאת, להשתלט על רצועה גדולה, ליד ציר פילדלפי, בערך איזה 3, 4, 5 קילומטר, יחד עם הגבול הזה שאנחנו מאבטחים שלנו, טיפה להזיז את הכוחות אחורה, להתעמק בהקמת יחידות הנדסה נוספות, יחידות טכנולוגיות והנדסה נוספות, ולא בשריון. מה קורה לנו? אנחנו נכנסים עם כלי שנקרא טנק מרכבה סימן 4-5, עולה 100 מיליון שקל. יוצא מחבל מחור, מפיר, שב-RPG שהגדילו לו את החומר נפץ עכשיו, הרוסים או הקוריאנים, כן? שעולה $200 ומוריד לנו טנק. רבותיי, זה מלחמה אחרת. אנחנו לא בנויים למלחמה הזאת כרגע.
Number 12 here tomorrow. We're going to go show here. This is a Saraya al-Quds, Islamic Jihad's armed wing. We're looking at a photo, at a video footage of them seeing Israeli soldiers, dismounted Israeli soldiers in a building. And now we're seeing them, their fighters, knocking a loophole, a sniper loophole, out of the wall of this destroyed house, in contrast to the Israelis who stand in the windows and put curtains up when they're in there. We're seeing a fighter, a sniper, a clearly skilled sniper, set back from the wall, which is just basic military procedure, not visible, and dropping Israeli soldiers who are outside of a building with sniper fire, which is also a key operational tactic that we will see in the buffer zone, because there is no possibility of creating a defensive zone where Israeli soldiers are when Palestinians have the capabilities that they have now, which they didn't have 20 years ago. And when they were expelled to Marj Zahur in 1994, they didn't have these resources that they have built with their own hands in the Gaza Strip for themselves. So this is a sniper attack dropping a soldier. Let's go to the next one tomorrow, because there's another one that we see. Again, this is a Saraya al-Quds unit using a 50 cal sniper rifle. We're seeing footage right now of them inside a destroyed building that has no hole in the wall. And we're seeing right now one of their fighters poking a hole in the wall using a hammer very carefully to make the hole as small as possible. And then the fighters looks a bit like the same sniper. These are both Gaza City shots that are taking place. Again, dismounted soldiers moving what they believe is a safe area, and a fighter in a hoodie and a toque popping a loophole out and targeting these Israeli soldiers, which is something that will happen constantly in that. I just wanted to throw in a couple of Saraya al-Quds there. Again, we're showing actually that this one's from Bereja. Actually, this is a Central Camps again. So shout out to the Central Camps resistance that has been fierce since this third phase, when Israel has moved into the center and the south. The resistance by these groups have been by all resistance factions. We tend to show these videos by Qassam and Saraya al-Quds in part because they have the film crew, they have the expertise, they have the information operations embedded into their units. But there's 10 armed groups in the Gaza Strip that are carrying out operations daily. So Saraya al-Quds is the Islamic Jihad, the armed wing of Islamic Jihad, and the Qassam brigades are the armed wing of the Hamas movement.
Something, John, this is may sound a little bit weird, but sometimes when I'm driving and I see all the raccoons and sometimes deer killed on the roads, and it makes me very, very sad. And I say, well, you know, animals have such incredible ways of communication and instinct, but they don't have language the same way we do. Because I just wish, like, the deer could tell the other deer, stay away from the roads, or, you know, if you see headlights, don't cross the road. They don't have that ability to do that, so they can never, I don't know, learn over time. But like, presumably Israeli soldiers do have that ability. And so my question is, like, aren't they telling each other, stay away from the windows,
They can't
don't walk
help it.
out? I mean,
Yeah, like they love windows.
are they like raccoons? I mean, what is going on? I mean, raccoons are actually lovable creatures. I know that's a touchy topic in Toronto, but
I'm pro raccoon though.
Yeah,
I
raccoons
know,
are great.
They're
but
like
I mean,
animal gorillas.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm being a little lighthearted about it, but the serious question is there no, you know, you've been telling us, you've been showing us how Hamas learns from its experience, how Hezbollah learns from its experience, even within the context of this battle. So yes, they're learning over decades, but they're also learning over days and weeks in the context of this genocidal war. Why aren't the Israelis learning?
I don't have an answer to that. I think we'll have to ask them after. I mean, there was footage shown the other day of a Sarai al-Quds force coming into the house that the Israelis are in and
Right.
fighting inside the house. We have showed that video. I don't think YouTube would leave that video up, but they're fighting inside the house. And one of the things that you see from the Israeli soldier on his helmet cam is that he goes right to the window. It's almost like he's looking for an extra window to go to. It's not clear why they're not learning these lessons. Maybe they are learning the lessons, and we're just seeing the ones who aren't. But no, it's not clear. What we're seeing is a fighting force that is not able to carry out the orders of their generals that are saying that they're going to fight in Gaza for a year. Nothing shows that the Israelis are prepared for that on a societal level or on a military level to carry out what they claim that they're going to do, which is why I think we're starting to see, like this week, we saw Israeli and American intelligence reports leaked kind of to the Washington Post and to the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal about the number of Qassam fighters that the Israelis have killed, looking for an exit. And they use this term combat ineffective that we talked about. Where if 30% of your force has been killed or wounded and can't come back to fight, that unit is considered combat ineffective, which is obviously not true for a Palestinian guerrilla force that's able to appoint leaders and to move fighters in a fighting force that is more than 40,000, and the Israelis have kind of ratcheted strangely in an effort to exit this war, ratcheted down the number of fighters that they believe that the Qassam brigades have down to 25,000, so that they can get these numbers to line up. Because in the Western media, these counting numbers are something that they rely on.
Body count. I mean, John, talk about the history of body counts in the context of the Vietnam War and what that stood for, how that symbolized the American failure.
In that attack while they were getting smoked by the Vietnamese resistance. And so these numbers, like Israel trying to say that they've killed 9,000 Qassam fighters, there's no evidence whatsoever of that. If that number is true, there's no men in all of Gaza who are not in the Qassam brigades, because that's the number of men that have been killed. But just to say, like, I follow the Israeli military, very closely throughout this, and I watch every single one of their videos. And if I told you that there wasn't even 50 corpses in their videos, I don't want to put a number out, but the number is in the dozens. And we don't even know that they're fighters that they put out in their videos. Their videos are essentially videos of snuff films from the air, where they're saying that person is a fighter. And even still, even if you took all of their videos and all of the people that they kill in all of their videos, there's nothing like thousands. It's lies. And partially the military censor allows for these lies, but I mean, partially the thing that you described in your report, Ali, it's all part of that. The media is intertwined with these fighting forces, and it's like they can't. Elizabeth Dwoskin has hundreds of thousands of words of electronic intifada, including tens of thousands from the Gaza Strip itself, if she wanted to report on what was going on. But there doesn't seem to be any interest in that. There's nothing like the New York Times appears to be the same as the Israeli censor. If you type Hannibal into the New York Times search engine, you're not going to get anything about the dozens of stories that have appeared in the Israeli press. It's almost the Israelis with their censor are almost more telling us more than the Western media. So let's just look at the last few of these videos here. This number 14, Tamara. This is again troops walking around outside a building that they feel they have control of, and then we see fighters, Qassam fighters, the armed wing of Hamas, fighters using a thermobaric warhead built in the Gaza Strip on lathes underground, as all of these weapons that we're seeing throughout this war, the weapons that we're seeing are built by Palestinians. And part of the reason why they're able to still fight 4 months on is because the preparation that their own arms industry created. And the Israelis talk about that too, saying, well, we didn't expect it to be as vital, that their arms industry wasn't this vital. They didn't expect that there was 50% more tunnels than the largest tunnel estimate they said. Like Kogat said that the tunnels are an astonishing feat. These are Palestinians defending themselves against genocide with their own hands, with things built in their own communities, and fighting for communities that are now in Jabalia, in this case, although there's still, as we know, a lot of people in the north. The vast majority of people have been driven from their homes and are living in very dangerous circumstances in the south, in places where Israel told them to go, and they're now under attack. Which is also something you can read about on the Electronic Intifada, but it's not clear that you're going to read about that in the Washington Post. Let's just roll through the last. Let's do 16 tomorrow, because this is a video by the Qassam Brigades from Gaza City, and we can see again soldiers in a window. But in this video that we're going to watch, we're seeing Palestinians who are in the building, literally across the street. Literally the next building over.
All these videos are videos mainstream media not going to show the fake news, because that shows the Palestinians being heroic. Dude, this war done proved they some of the most bravest fighters on the goddamn planet. I don't care what nobody say. What they worked with and they got a heart of lions. That's why the mainstream media don't want to show this, because anybody in the world who got a heart like we do, then it shows you when you work with what you got, and you defeat your opponent, you defeat your enemy, no matter what, if you believe in your cause.
Using a different warhead than they target the soldiers on foot. Here they are using an RPG against a bulldozer. Here's dismounted soldiers walking, and this is a fragmentation warhead that's used against personnel. So we're seeing the fighters make choices. There's nothing indicating shortages. There's nothing indicating any kind of degrading of these resistance operations. If anything, the fighters now know better what weapons to use in what circumstance and what's more effective. There's another soldier in a window that we're watching, and we're also watching in Gaza City here a soldier be hit on the waterfront, which Israel said that it took control of in November. And now we're seeing soldiers in a window being hit along the waterfront. And so these videos all show that the buffer zone, it's not a thing. The Israelis aren't going to create a buffer zone where their soldiers are somehow not going to be attacked. The only way out of this situation for Israel is to negotiate a prisoner exchange and to negotiate with Hezbollah in the north to get some kind of agreement for liberated territory, the Sheba farms, to get that territory back. And to have some kind of a diplomatic exit to this, which I think we're starting to see from the Americans and the French, that the Israelis need, which they needed in 2006 as well. We remember in 2006, they didn't want a ceasefire in 2006. And then they carried out the ground operation, got smoked, and then wanted a ceasefire.
And it's
So I
important
think we'll
to
see
note
that.
now, John, on this. This is very important, because this also tells us something about, we could look at it from the perspective of the videos, which shows what's happening on the battlefield, but the diplomatic developments also tell us what's happening on the battlefield. And what I mean by that is that Israel is desperate for a ceasefire, but without calling it a ceasefire, because they have painted themselves into this corner where they're saying they have all these big goals. We're going to destroy Hamas, obliterate Hamas. Gaza is going to be changed for generations. We're going to free the hostages, etc., etc. And they know, because they said it in the beginning, stupidly, they said it, and Blinken said it, that a ceasefire means Hamas won. So now they can't agree to a ceasefire that they desperately want, because by their own definition, that's defeat for them. Their publicly stated definition, that's defeat for them. So what are they doing now? They keep sending these proposals through the mediators, whether it's Qatar or Egypt. And the latest one is, oh, we'll give you a 2-month ceasefire in exchange for freeing the prisoners of war, and will allow the senior leaders of Hamas to leave the Gaza Strip, and all sorts of other things.
No release of Palestinian prisoners from Israeli jails, though. That was also part of their
Well,
proposal.
the point is, yeah, I mean, it's all these different things.
Yeah.
And Hamas is saying, no, we will not accept that. Not for a month, not for 2 months, not for 6 months. It has to be a permanent ceasefire.
Yeah.
That's our condition. So the point I'm making is they feel that they can hold that line. So their assessment of what's happening on the battlefield, clearly their assessment of what resources they have, is that they can hold that line. They stated that very clearly a couple of weeks ago. Abu Ubaidah, the spokesperson for the military wing of Hamas, the Al-Qassam brigades, Abu Ubaidah as he's known. That's the only way we know him. He's the man who appears with his face covered in the keffiyeh, and he's sort of this legendary figure. He made that very clear. We will not accept anything less than a permanent ceasefire. Osama Hamdan, another senior Hamas leader in Beirut, who gives these daily press conferences, has been crystal clear about that. So the Israelis are the ones who constantly keep increasing their offer. First, they were saying a 2-week ceasefire and free the prisoners. Now we're up to 2 months. And this is coming from the Israeli side.
The Israelis don't have the ability to continue this war indefinitely, and the Palestinians are not going to surrender. This idea that Sinwar is surrounded by captives is ridiculous. The idea that they're going to have any kind of negotiations happening that involve, I mean, I don't want to predict, but I think one of the things that I would be confident predicting is that Yahya Sinwar is not going to take exile as part of this
no
deal.
way.
So these kind of talks are ridiculous. And what you see is Israel looking for a way out of a war that they're losing. And we've told you that for 4 months, that they're going to lose this war, and that they're fighting against Palestinians who have dedicated their entire life to this liberation struggle. And if they didn't and they weren't dedicating their life to it before, they definitely are now. And there's no question that this is a national liberation struggle, that nobody's going to surrender. No Palestinians wanting that. We're not seeing anything like that. We're seeing footage every single day of devastation, of attacking civilians, and those civilians supporting the resistance. You're not going to genocide your way out of this national liberation struggle.
Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit like, leave a comment.
As we transition to the videos and resistance part of the show, I know that just a couple days ago, one of the biggest mass casualty events for the Israeli army happened in Al-Mawasi, but the New York Times kind of framed what the soldiers were doing when they were attacked as just kind of like a normal Israeli army operation. They referenced something that they called the buffer zone, let's start with that. Let's start with what the soldiers were doing in Al-Mawasi and sorry, in Magazi, not Mawasi, in Magazi camp, and what happened.
Hi guys. Yeah, so Monday 4 p.m. Local time, social media started to come alive with Israeli social media accounts talking about a disaster that happened in the Gaza Strip. As it turned out, they had to admit to at least 21 deaths so far in an operation where their forces were laying mines to blow up. Basically to blow up neighborhood blocks, rather than using airstrikes, which are expensive and resource intensive with the cost of the fighter jets and the bombs that are given to them for basically free by the Americans. The Israelis have been carrying out this operation on the ground where they literally wire up the buildings and explode them. And so the Israeli Defense Forces spokesperson said that this was one of those operations, 600 meters across the border from an Israeli settlement in the south. And the nature of the attack was that the Palestinian Qassam Brigade's fighter, it appears to be an individual fighter, fired a Yasin at this force that was laying these mines and blew up the house that they were in. And we've got a little bit of visuals here so people can understand what we're talking about these mines, because they've started to come out a little bit in the news over the last couple of weeks because of this footage, in particular, this footage. This is Isra University, which is in Gaza City, and the Israelis are showing this from their drone camera footage. This is what they do. This is what the mines do. They basically vaporize these buildings. This is hundreds of mines to carry out an operation like that. And this is, again, a social media account showing these anti-tank mines. And Israeli soldiers have been talking about it, about how they're basically donkeys carting these anti-tank mines all over Gaza to blow things up, to blow up entire city blocks. If we look at this next one, we can see what they're doing. And the operation in Al-Maghazi, they were trying to blow up 10 buildings. And we've seen, if people have probably seen from the Israeli TikTok army, that the Israeli army has been releasing videos like this where they're actually in the videos. I chose not to show them. I think people can go find them if they want, but acting like idiots, mocking what's happening, doing ridiculous dances, and then pressing the trigger to detonate these entire blocks with these massive explosions. We saw a TikTok video of Israeli soldiers going through a Palestinian house and taking the clock off the wall and hanging a mine on it, taking family pictures and smashing them and hanging mines on them. So this has been something that the Israelis have really dug deep into in their TikTok war. Which is always juxtaposed really starkly with the resistance videos that we show and that the Qassam Brigades and Palestinian resistance release all the time. But yeah, so this operation was them laying these mines, being in the process of laying these mines and getting struck by the Palestinian resistance. And what these mines are, what they're doing, although Isra University was just an example of them destroying the 7 universities in the Gaza Strip as part of a systematic campaign, which is basically all the military is doing, destroying. But the only systematic thing that's happening is the attack of hospitals and schools, which has been happening since the beginning. And the Isra University administration said that that actually was used as a base by the Israelis before it was blown up. And so there's no pretext of this being anything other than destruction. But let's just look at some of these maps, because what Israel is attempting to do here is establish what they call a buffer zone. And essentially, this is an attempt, and Israel has done this, just to say, all along. When I lived in Gaza in the Second Intifada, basically all of what Israel was doing was creating buffer zones, creating them around the settlements, creating them around the border areas. And essentially, the goal is to push the population back away from the settlements that are in that envelope that we've been talking about, that we talked about on the show many times. That was the target of October 7th. It's also, of course, the villages where the Palestinians who live in Gaza, the refugees who came from those villages. But this is an attempt that Israel has done. They do it in the north as well, of course, with Hezbollah, trying to push them off the border. But when you're talking about the Gaza Strip, you're talking about a place that's 6 kilometers wide. And so this attempt to set up the buffer zone, you can see it in the next couple images. Let's do the before and after here tomorrow. You can see, so this is the area in Gaza before. This is early in the war, photographed by the Israeli Defense Forces. And if you look in this next photo, you can see what they're doing. They're just erasing population centers and moving them back from the border by carrying out these operations where they spend time and resources to stay in position and wire up the buildings. These are not airstrikes that happen in the snap of a finger. These are days-long operations to rig up explosives in these buildings. And really, when you just look at that before and after, I mean, it looks like an eraser was used. And so the footage of Isra University was something that actually made the news, in part because the Associated Press's Matt Lee questioned State Department spokesperson about this and asked about it. And the Israelis were kind of, the spokesperson was caught off guard by it, but the Israelis are caught off guard by it because they're doing this for weeks on end and don't get any coverage. And then all of a sudden, the State Department is asking them questions about why they blew up the university. And so they tell, of course, just patent lies about the university and say that they're looking into it, which is, of course, something we've talked about on this show since the show began. The way that Israel carries out these kind of investigations when they're as if they're surprised by what happened, although the videos that we showed are Israeli army drone footage. So they're very well aware of what's happening. And in the Western media, this was framed yesterday as a surprise to Blinken that Israel was creating a buffer zone, even though Israel has said that that's what they're doing. And they've talked about this buffer zone as part of the third stage of this war that's happening right now, where they are taking some of the reserve forces and putting them back into their flagging economy. And they're establishing a buffer zone. They're bulldozing a buffer zone, and they're doing that in part by laying these mines. So now let's watch the Qassam operation. So Qassam describes the operation exactly the same way as the Israelis, that they're fighters. This is footage now we're showing here of a building. Admitted to 2 of the tank crew were killed in that operation. And this is the Qassam brigades who were told by the Israelis, who need to say that they're destroyed before the Israelis can withdraw. We're seeing Qassam respond within hours to this story that came originally through social media. Because of course the Israelis have a censor on all this information, and so there's not normal society reporting on what's going on. It's all covered by a censor. But because of the scale of this attack, 21 dead, at least that's the number that they've admitted, that they had to confront this attack head on and explain it, because their populations were saying what's going on, because people are worried about their families who are the soldiers and whatnot. So the IDF, unlike other times when they can just ignore it or lie about it, they had to confront this operation and explain what happens. And then Qassam brigades release within 12 hours a video of of the operation that they say is connected to what happened in Al-Maghazi. Again, this is carried out by the central camps brigade of the Qassam brigades, who we talked about on the last show, saluting their leaders, and we've talked about them for a number of shows because this middle camp's resistance has been fierce for this war for the Israelis. And so they're not actually, this operation, as the Israelis were saying, was what they call it a defensive operation, because they're setting up a buffer zone. And the buffer zone is set up so that Israelis will come back and live in the south. And that's what the IDF spokesperson said. So they're carrying out this operation so that the Gaza envelope villages, settlements, kibbutz people will come home, because as we know, there's hundreds of thousands of Israelis who are out of their houses, both in the north and in the south. And a lot of Israel's exit plan for this war has to somehow include pictures of people going back to the south and setting up again. Otherwise, the war is clearly a failure for the Israelis, even by their own standards with their own people. And so this operation, again, shows that Qassam has clear command and control. Presuming that this attack used an attack tunnel, it shows that the resistance can reach the Israelis anywhere they are, which is, of course, the truth in Palestine. Anywhere the Israeli army is in all of Palestine, there's resistance in whatever form people can pull together in that spot. In this spot, we're seeing a trained force, a disciplined force, carrying out operations consistently. Again, everything that I'm going to show on this show today has been from the last 7 days since you last saw us. We're not cherry picking these reports. These are, if anything, I have to cull through all the videos to find, to shorten them down to get them in, because there's so many operations by this resistance force that doesn't show any signs of being degraded in the way that Israel needs to say is happening. They count the Israelis hide their casualties and count every single male that's killed in the Gaza Strip as a Qassam Brigade's elite force fighter. This kind of absurdity, when really they're killing, mostly women and children and non-involved people, to the tune of 100,000 casualties right now. And those are just the wounded and killed already that we know. The operation in Khan Yunis is a devastating war crime happening around shelters and hospitals. It's a brutal operation. And then Israel's able to say in their media that this kind of buffer zone operation is a defensive operation, when they have 100,000 forces inside the Gaza Strip fighting, dropping bombs, 35,000 plus airstrikes. So you get a sense both from that attack, the ability for the Qassam brigades to respond to the media discussions. As soon as the Israelis, they announced it the next morning, Tuesday morning, local time. And as soon as they announced it, the Qassam brigades, like literally within 2 minutes of the IDF acknowledging it, the Qassam brigades released a field report with a visual of 21 triangles. So we're seeing them interact immediately. We're not seeing some kind of delayed response that takes days. They're not piecing together some footage to try to show that it was an operation. That operation looked like exactly what the Israelis described. And so I don't think we need
Why
to
do you
say.
think the Israelis, John, sorry to interrupt you, why do you think the Israelis came out and said what happened? I mean, in the past, they've claimed that their soldiers were killed in friendly fire incidents, which in a certain sense is, I mean, that's very embarrassing if you're shooting or killing a lot of your own people, but it's less embarrassing in a way than the resistance killed all these people. Choose your poison. Why didn't they try to present this as an engineering accident?
I guess.
Is it
wouldn't
because
you
they
rather
know
be killed by an enemy fighter who's courageous and skilled than to say that you blew up your comrade because you were making a TikTok video? I mean, it's not clear to me what the Israelis are thinking by this. I mean, one of the tenets of war is to respect your opponent, and why not say that your people are being killed by highly trained, skilled fighters who are showing extraordinary courage. It doesn't make any sense to me why they want to say that they blew each other up by being scared and opening fire on anybody, which we know the Israelis do, because we know from their killing their own people that having a white flag, no shirt on, I mean, these guys that were killed in Shujaiya by the Israelis that were trying to come out from captivity and go to their own people to save them, they knew to not wear T-shirts so that the Israelis wouldn't shoot them for saying they were suicide bombers. And so they came out of with no shirts on, with their hands up, with white flags, writing SOS on the wall. And the Israelis are so scared that they still kill those people. So it's not clear to me why friendly fire is a good way. I think that the answer to the question why this time that they admitted it is because the scale of the attack. It came out, first of all, it lit up the entire skyline with clouds from the destruction. But then the rescue effort was such that the Israelis used civilian ambulances and fire trucks. And I think at some point, you can't lie on a large scale like this in a society, I mean, in any society, but in a society where people are actually participating. So people start talking, they get text messages from their family and they're describing this disaster in the south.
Yeah.
And so I think the Israelis had to come out and say what happened. At first, it seemed like they were only going to admit to 10 deaths. Then they added, they're up to 21. And presumably it's more than that, because it doesn't sound like there was, it sounds like the mines destroyed at least 3 buildings and dropped them on top of their fighters. So I think in some cases like this, they just can't lie.
And they also didn't announce, John, if I'm correct, or correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't say any number of injuries. They only announced the number of deaths. Based on, typical military rules of thumb, there are probably at least 3 injured, if not more, for every 1 killed, right?
Unless you vaporize them with hundreds of anti-tank mines, like I don't know if they couldn't get the rubble. I mean, the Israeli example gives you a sense of what the Palestinians are living through. They couldn't find the people in the rubble, even with all of their civil defense that's allowed to exist to dig people out of the rubble. That's not allowed for Palestinians. And so I think, it's possible that there's a lot more in that incident. And I think the way that Israel covers up their casualties in part is because they're able to sort of say to each family, like, we're not saying that Israel's lying to all these families and telling them that their kids are in Goa or something like that. It's just that they're able to, leak out the deaths one by one. They ask people not to have big funerals. They concentrate the funerals. We saw today the funeral become part of sort of like a national event for the Israelis, and some of the Israeli senior officials that came to it were attacked by the family members, who are starting to say in Israel that people are dying for a war that they're not winning. And they're showing footage. The footage that comes home is showing their army being committing war crimes and generally being cowardly and destructive. And I'm not sure that in the end, I mean, the Israelis clearly believe that these kind of descriptions are what their population wants. Like Gallant said in response to this, he said, the plumes of smoke from the tanks, artillery, and Air Force planes will continue to cover the skies of the Gaza Strip until we achieve our goals. So it's like that they do believe that their population wants to see Gaza destroyed, but at some point, this fighting is going to be too much for them to bear. And I think we're starting to see those cracks in Israeli society and these kind of large-scale things. It's very hard to cover it up in Israel when people participated, in the rescue operation of these soldiers for 12 hours.
And these were reservists, right?
And they wiped out an entire unit of reservists aged 22 to 40 years old.
Because the reservists are the ones who, from some of the things I've read, they generally try to keep the reservists out of the front line, out of combat. The reservists are doing the engineering, they're doing the logistics, they're doing the backup work, but they're not the first people sent to do the frontline fighting, because these are civilians who are, going for however many weekends a year they have to go for their reserve training, but also because the societal cost, you haven't, if you're a career soldier, you've signed up for that. It's kind of the deal that you may be sent in somewhere where you're going to die. If you're a reservist, that's not necessarily what you're trying to do. So my point here is that the impact of these being reservists on the society is probably magnified as compared to if they were, professional frontline combat units.
Yeah, I mean, they want it both ways because they brag about these reservists. Remember, we talked for a couple shows at the beginning about how they bragged about how they called up all these reservists and everybody's ready to fight in Israeli society. And then, the economy has tanked based on the fact that the entire country is more or less shut down. The entire north, the entire south is not operating. And so part of Israel's war aims had to be to release some of the reservists to show that they were moving some of these people out. But yeah, the operation, they called it a defensive operation because they're working in the buffer zone. Let's move to the videos because I'm going to show you here the way that the Palestinians are able to reach the buffer zone. There's no spot that you can put reservists that puts them somehow out of the line of fire. Because if we go through these videos here, let's tee those up tomorrow. This is an attack tunnel we're watching right now. Palestinians climbing a ladder through a hole in the ground, coming out into the buffer zone and targeting an Israeli vehicle here. We see 3 fighters come out, a cameraman who's separate, and then we see the Palestinian guerrilla, the Qassam Brigade's fighter, firing his Yassin from the buffer zone. So the tunnel network that the Israelis have now said is 50% larger than they believed it was. So they now believe that there's more than 700 kilometers of these tunnels. These tunnels go all through this buffer zone, and we know that they go into Israel as well, because we know that those attack tunnels were used in 2014 in the operation to come out. And see here, we're seeing in this footage right here, those are civilian ambulances taking part in these operations on the border. And clearly we're seeing a helicopter here. This is just an aside, but it's pretty clear that the Palestinian resistance is not targeting the medevac helicopters, which is an interesting development because these helicopters have carried out more than 1,400 medevacs. That's what Israel's admitted to in this operation. So that if we can loop it around again tomorrow. So the video, we can see him climbing up a ladder through a hole in the ground because they're able to dig out from dig the tunnel network to make an attack tunnel. They can make the spot where they exit the tunnel to fight in any of these places. So the longer the Israelis are in this buffer zone, the more these kind of attacks can happen. And after this tomorrow, if we could just show the still photo, because this shot is just, we see the Yassin and we talk about it, and we often see it from helmet camera footage, but there's a good shot of what it looks like. The Gaza-made Yassin RPG with their 105 millimeter dual charged explosive. So that's what we've been showing in the videos for the last 4 months is that weapon. And you can see this fighter coming out of an attack tunnel and setting up on a hillside. The level of detail of this operation and the courage of this operation, you couldn't more starkly juxtapose it with a TikTok army smashing some innocent family in Gaza's family photos and then hanging a mine on the wall and doing some sort of dance. The combination between the lying about their casualties and what they choose to brag about in this war is just, it's really stark. And I think that mine operation disaster for the Israelis and a complex, well-executed operation for the Palestinians, which includes, according to the field report by the Qassam Brigades, included detonating a minefield as well. So it was a complex attack involving planning and detail. that these Israeli forces are now, if their goal is to set up in the buffer zone so that you're somehow pushing Palestinians back for 1 kilometer further from the settlements, these videos show that that clearly isn't going to happen. So that one we just watched, that was 3 fighters exiting a tunnel. If we go to the next one tomorrow, number 10, again, you can see them climbing out of the ground with a fresh hole dug. So we're watching an attack tunnel that didn't exist several weeks ago when Israel's clearing this area. You can see the fighter climb out of the tunnel, and here we're watching him load up his RPG with a helmet cam. And you can see by the way the topsoil is in this area that they dug that tunnel to exit the tunnel to fight. That wasn't a previously existing exit. So the Israelis believe that they're bulldozing, and that's why we've seen so much footage of these D9 bulldozers, the Caterpillar bulldozers, armored bulldozers, is because Israel believes that if they till the top layer of soil, that they'll expose these tunnels. And that has clearly not been the case, because we've shown you for months now Palestinians exiting tunnels that clearly show that they've just been dug. And so the capacity for these kind of attacks is extremely significant. And it's something that the longer the Israelis are in this buffer zone, the more likely these kind of attacks are. And that's got to be clear to anyone in the Israeli army that's laying mines today. I think they'll be a little more circumspect about their TikTok videos today, because I think everybody's going to be looking over their shoulder in the buffer zone to these kind of operations. And you're seeing here, you're watching footage here of a Palestinian getting within, I mean, it's hard to tell with the zoom there, but a couple dozen meters at most away from an armored vehicle that is an engineering troop carrier that is looking for tunnels and setting up this buffer zone. And you're seeing fighters that know the terrain. So this is east of Barej. Again, this is in the central camps. These are Palestinians fighting in their own neighborhoods. They know the tunnel network. They have it mapped above and below ground, and are able to carry out operations where they use the tunnel network and dig out an exit for the attack tunnel. And this kind of local guerrilla, who knows their own terrain, these kind of attacks are they're impossible to stop for the Israelis. And these are going to go on as long as this war continues, which is why Israel is killing its own prisoners, because the exit strategy for Israel in this war isn't clear. It's not clear that they're willing to exchange all for all prisoners, which they could have done, by the way, on the first day. The attack on October 7th didn't require genocide to take place. There could have been solutions to this, and there could be solutions in the north as well that don't involve sparking World War III by destroying Lebanon and bringing the American Marines and whatnot into a wider war that Helena was talking about at the beginning. There's diplomatic and political ways out of this conflict that exchange prisoners of war for prisoners of war, and end this. End this carnage.
What's particularly crazy about the Israeli approach, I mean, it's genocide, number one. I mean, that's the overarching reality. But the idea of a so-called buffer zone, I mean, they tried that. They tried that in Lebanon for 20 years. They had the so-called South Lebanon Security Zone, as they called it. And they were just bled and bled and bled. They were attacked all the time, and Hezbollah drove them out. And they left. They withdrew like thieves in the night in
they left their computers plugged in and just ran down the hill back into.
I went to South Lebanon they withdrew May 25th of the year 2000. I was there, I think it was the end of June or beginning of July, and everything was still fresh. The people there had preserved everything the way it was, and they were showing us around. And we went up to hilltop outposts that were either Israeli army outposts or outposts of the South Lebanon army, the South Lebanon version of the Palestinian Authority, the traitor militia that Israel set up, and which also fled. Most of its members fled to Israel. And their clothes were there, their boots were there, there were cans of food that were half eaten. I mean,
they just ran away.
They ran away. They ran away. So they tried that for 20 years in Lebanon. And what it generated was an even stronger Hezbollah. Something that Helena said earlier, Helena Cobban, that really struck me. I remember I was in college at the time, that it was a big deal at the time. It was a big news story when Israel arrested these hundreds of members of Hamas and other resistance groups and political leaders from Gaza, I think from the West Bank too. In other words, hundreds of people, and just dumped them over the border in Lebanon, which was completely illegal. It was a war crime. Lebanon refused to take them because they said, we are not going to be the dumping ground where Israel can expel Palestinians at will. So these guys were stuck in this border zone, and it was in winter, hundreds of them, for I can't remember how long it was, whether it was weeks or months or whatever, but I'd never thought of that until Helena mentioned it, as eventually it became a school for these hundreds of leaders to learn resistance tactics from Hezbollah. So that was Israel supposed to be, supposedly collectively punishing and dismantling Hamas. And what they ended up doing was strengthening its relationships with Hezbollah and turning it into an even more effective force. So they never learn. They never say, well, yeah, we tried that. It was a huge mistake. Didn't work out for us. It's always, let's do again and again and again the same thing we've been doing. But let's add more baby murder. Let's add more slaughter of kids. Let's add more humiliation and torture and murder of elders. Let's see if that works. Let's add more atrocities and see if we get better results.
Yeah, and these buffer zones are also shoot to kill zones, right? Like when I reported from Gaza in the Second Intifada, the kids, you had to rely on the kids to tell you exactly where the buffer zone line was, because the Israelis, well, we saw it on the Great March of Return as well, that the Israelis fire into these buffer zones. They're free fire zones and shoot to kill zones where it's the kids walking to school. In Rafah, when I lived in Rafah, they were killing kids walking to school. The buffer zones are an extremely violent area for the indigenous population. The idea that it's some kind of defensive zone or it's like some kind of cordon sanitaire or whatever, it's just not the truth. And Marja Zahur is the hill that they sent the Hamas leadership to in Lebanon. And yeah, it became a university for them to learn tactics, which Hezbollah had learned previously from the Palestinians. It's been a constant back and forth throughout the course of these struggles. So that's an important moment in the history of the armed struggle. There's no question about that. So I'm glad that she brought that up. That's an important point. Let's do number 11 here, Tamara. This is in Jabalia. Again, an attack tunnel bringing multiple fighters out through the morning fog here that you can see in Gaza, and reaching Israeli armored vehicles. And so there's no buffer zone that's a defensive buffer zone. It's just not true. It's not possible with the tunnel network. It's not possible that the fighters are going to not fight in this zone. So it's an impossible task that the Israelis are setting up here. But the task involves erasing thousands of Palestinian homes. And as we know from Rafat, many generations live in these homes. And so when one home can be home to 40 people, 50 people, and they're destroying hundreds of them in each day as part of a systematic policy. So I just wanted to show this one because it's through the morning fog that is a benefit to the resistance fighters as well. And in the winter in Gaza, the morning fog is a thing. So you can see them again moving through their own territory. These are their own areas in Jabalia. These are where these fighters live. The fighters fight in their own communities, defending their own communities. And so this is Jabalia in the far north of Gaza. We watched the middle camps area of Gaza, and we know that there's extremely fierce fighting
There are
in
those
Khan Yunis.
Adidas pants again. Sorry, John.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's probably the best endorsement deal Adidas didn't want.
They should want it. They, no, the resistance fighters are clearly using comfortable attire to carry out these operations and are very successful in it. So let's.
Thanks for watching this video.
And let's pivot to hear about how Jim Crow Joe is. Well, my natural title was going to be Black Democrats are suing the Biden administration over immigration until I seen that the 3 U.S. troops was killed. So let's pivot back over to that original content that I had lined up for us.
All right. Well, Black Democrats are suing the city of Chicago because of illegal immigrants. This highlights something that many conservative thinkers, such as Candace Owens, Douglas Murray, us on this show have been saying for a long time, that making Black neighborhoods unsafe is not compassionate, it's racist. This is real racism, not microaggressions. Allowing people to get away with crimes in low-income neighborhoods is terror and torture to the Black communities that live there. And Black Democratic voters are saying they've had enough of this. Now, you can say, oh, yes, but we care about migrants, bring them all in. But most people who say that are what's called a NIMBY. That's an acronym for not in my backyard. So yeah, bring them in, but I don't necessarily want to see them, right? Let other poor neighborhoods absorb them in those poor neighborhoods because they're without, they're among their own, poor people. The people who say this on a Twitter account because they have an office job, am an upwardly mobile person. I should not have to see this, right? But all those other people who are not upwardly mobile, they can absorb them. That's how this is playing out, as we were warned. This group of Black people suing the city, this was a story highlighted in the Free Press. And it was a feature that I want to say, I think it's worth reading if you're a subscriber. It's a wonderful piece. I want to let this first woman, Kata Truss, say it for herself. She says, "How dare you?" This was her reaction. 57-year-old mother on the west side of Chicago, when she found out who was behind this push to turn her neighborhood park into a shelter for migrants, the Democrats she helped elect. She said, all these people, I've supported every single one of them. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? She said this park where they wanted to put a migrant center, she says this was the crown jewel of her community. And it was a great place for her when she wanted her kids to keep out of trouble. She could send them there to do sports. She says there's a humanitarian crisis in the Black community, but every time we have a need in our community, we're told there's no funds, there's no money for us. So then how does it feel when 35,000 migrants come to Chicago? They're offered resources like their laundry done, mental health care screening, free health care, and $15,000 each in rental assistance. How does that feel when you're told your school needs stuff, we can't afford it, but here's some brand new people? This is breaking your social contract with the government, right? You pay into your taxes so that you get things out, but they're paying into a system, working into a system, allowing the government to take out of their paychecks, getting nothing in return, told there's nothing there. And then new people come in who haven't been paying and they get stuff. You see how it's not a matter of like, is it right? Is it fair? It's a breaking of the social contract. Now, this woman, she got wind that her neighborhood park was about to become a center, and she raced down to the courthouse with her neighbors and the local NAACP rep, and she filed a lawsuit that she wrote out on a notebook, which is her right to do. The Free Press points out how this is really starting to have a big effect on Democratic politics. Says the crisis is leading Democrats to turn on their own party. I spoke with 18 of them in Chicago, including a restorative justice advocate and a former Obama intern. Some of them even said, if we skip down, that they're thinking of voting for Donald Trump. It's a phenomenon that's been reflected in national polls, with Trump on the track to win nearly a quarter of the Black voters in key battleground states. That means that a fifth of Black voters who voted for Biden by a margin of 92% in 2020 could turn their back on the president. And this man here, he says, they're giving the migrants all the things we've been asking for since we came here in chains. It's an interesting question, right? Why one group over another? This guy says that he is a DEI consultant and a proponent. So, I mean, this is a liberal guy, right? Even ran as a Democrat. And he says what the Democratic Party doesn't want Black people to hear is that this is a Biden policy. Biden is allowing the borders to remain open. Now, I don't know how that's news to anybody because their neighborhood was not inundated with immigrants under Trump. You have to be able to connect the dots. He's saying that, you know, to the media, this is the secret. I'm thinking that that secret's out. Seems like people in this neighborhood knows. Their local Democratic electors are not happy or not helping. Last year, the city announced that a building that was slated to be a local community center would be turned into a migrant center. This here, years ago under Rahm Emanuel, they closed this school because they didn't have the money to run it as a school. They were going to turn it over to the community as a community center. Now, all of a sudden, the city found some money to run it as a migrant center. So
It's
how does that
amazing.
feel?
Flip the couch cushions over, you find all kinds of money available for them.
You have to imagine if you're an advocate for a hurting community and you're told there's nothing here for you, how does this feel?
Well, and it's also a bit of a smack in the face to the homeless crisis, because it's like you could have had all this money to help homeless people and you're going to put migrants in there instead, and these homeless people are still on the streets.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
but no, those are Americans. So those are American homeless. But if you came across the southern border all the way up from Ecuador, all the way through the Darien Gap and came across into America illegally, then you get the services.
I mean, hey, maybe that's what homeless people should do. Leave through California, go down through Arizona, come over and come back up through the border, and you'll get housing.
It would be amazing to know how many like veterans are taken care of in Chicago, people who, you know, don't get the services they need, homeless people, homeless veterans in Chicago that aren't getting the services they need, the policing that's been underfunded, the school system that's been underfunded.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw, you know, Kamala Harris is out there pushing these, you know, we're pushing $1 billion to redo all like school systems with their electric buses.
Right.
So kids can have electric school buses.
She told
Like, that's a priority.
Yeah.
Let's fund that and illegal immigrants, but not actually help the schools.
Well, this one man says, you know, my kids walk past a school that was an elementary school and was closed because of funding. Now it's been handed over to migrants. That feels awful to walk past that school knowing that you paid your taxes, but the government mismanaged that money and couldn't keep that school open. But they found it for another group, right? This is racism. You guys, you're choosing one group over another. I don't know how else. Like, we're so fixated on microaggressions and whether or not certain things are racism that when the most blatant racism is staring us in the face and we're saying, screw you, Black people, just you absorb these migrants in your community. We don't care if you're uncomfortable.
And
You
it's,
always
and it's Democrats doing it. Democrats who love to be out there on Black Lives Matter. You know, we're gonna. Where's Nancy Pelosi kneeling? You know, wearing some sort of an African robe or something like that. You know, kneeling and George Floyd protests. Like, we're so concerned about the Black community until it's necessary to be concerned about the Black community.
Right. And there's this underlying assumption that people in these poorer communities live uncomfortably anyway. And we could just turn our nose up and like, what do you care if there's some, you know, Hispanic people pooping on the sidewalk? You already live in squalor, right? That is racist. It's a totally racist thing to think that you can just like make miserable people more miserable and not have to see it. It's racist and elitist. The Free Press says that at least 3 of these lawsuits have been successful, and several migrant centers were stopped in these neighborhoods. Again, you know, Candace Owen has been saying this for a long time, that Democrats use Black people, and they're wrong to believe their rhetoric because this is proof positive. I think this highlights how it's not really a right or left issue. It's an issue of the social contract. You don't pay taxes in order to bring in new people who get perks that you are then denied. And these are like the school bit is a part of the social contract. We pay into our taxes in order to get school, right? We're not talking about what do we call these social funds? Like extras, people who draw off the government.
What, entitlements?
Entitlement programs. That's the word. We're not talking about entitlement. School is not an entitlement program, right? That's not what this is. They go to work. They have taxes taken out of their paycheck. School is the base level thing we should be assuming that they get. And those schools are closed and turned into migrant centers. And, you know, anyone who says that we as a country should just lovingly absorb these migrants are usually the people who don't have to lift a finger or make a change.
And the migrants are getting the premium treatment. They're getting medical, they're getting their food, they're getting everything that they need is if they want genital reconstruction surgery, like anything they want or need, they're getting free of charge on the taxpayer back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. In California. Yeah. I mean, what I think the first of the year in California, they're now getting full health care in California, illegal immigrants in
Right.
California.
Which includes transgender surgeries and cross-sex hormones, right? Because that's a priority. I mean, imagine living in Oakland and you can't even your kids can't get pencils and erasers and books, and their schools are being closed down. And then a migrant walks by with boobs, right? That you paid for. Come on, you guys.
Well, and you see In-N-Out Burger is closing in Oakland.
You did that. Yeah. Like
because of crime.
That's why we can't have nice things.
You closed an In-N-Out Burger because of your crime, your criminality.
Right. And so here is how now all of a sudden upwardly mobile New York City residents are having to deal with this as well and becoming increasingly vocal. They say that New York City has turned into a giant toilet as migrants litter the park with poop and leave cups of urine on doorsteps. Now, I am choosing not to show you. This New York Post article had some gnarly photos, and I don't know if you're eating or not, so I'm not going to show it to you. If you'd like to see overflowing porta potties and other gross stuff, seek out this New York Post headline.
No, I'm more interested in the New York Post headline above that. That's actually not, which is the one, if you want to, which is these 4 smoldering zodiac signs will have the most sex in 2024.
I don't know. I didn't click it.
That's better than the poop on the doorsteps.
I'm betting you Sagittarius is on there because it's going to be a good year.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm one too. So
I'm hoping Capricorn.
All right.
Hoping things turn around in February.
Guys, I don't know how to get back to cups of urine and
you don't have to get back to it. But this is where we're at. This is happening all over these towns. This isn't. I mean, look at Philadelphia.
Sagittarius sex.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm talking about the poop. I was trying to get you back to the poop and urine.
I do want to get back to the poop.
That's happening all over these cities right now, where people. I mean, it's just you walking across it. I mean, you remember when Xi Jinping came to San Francisco for the big meeting there with President Biden? They had to clean up the whole city, and Gavin Newsom admitted they had to kick out people and move people out and clean up all of the human stuff all over the streets because it was so disgusting.
Yes. Well, that is happening in New York City. New York City Mayor Eric Adams had to institute a curfew at 11 p.m. because residents were complaining that the migrants were panhandling. But, you know, they still you got to poop. So if there's nowhere to go, they're going to go on the streets. So
there's not a poop view? Is New York going to get a poop map like San Francisco?
Oh, yes, I forgot about that. San Francisco, if you don't know this, has an interactive map that shows you where people have spotted human poop because it is so prevalent. I suppose that
imagine downloading that app. I'm sure when Apple
when I went home, I downloaded it.
When Apple created the iPhone in San Francisco, they rolled out and announced the iPhone in downtown San Francisco. Little did they know that their iPhones would be used to track poop.
Yeah, it's gross.
Right outside the doorstep of the Moscone Center.
Well, what's sad is that's going to become a national app if we don't stop. It's like, hey, we're expanding. We're now moving into New York.
It's everywhere.
It's like Uber Eats. It starts in one city and it grows.
Did you know that Harvey Milk, his major platform was not being the first gay mayor? That was just who he was. But one of his main platforms was getting San Francisco residents to pick up their dog poop. And that's how he coalesced the voters around he was tired of walking around San Francisco and walking around poop. And so imagine, right, how we can get a consensus about now we've kind of solved the dog poop issue. Most dog owners are used to picking up their poops in those disposable plastic bags. Imagine how much we can get a consensus around not wanting to see human poop, but apparently that's what's happening in New York City. Meanwhile, the Biden administration won a Supreme Court ruling to gain access to areas of Texas in order to reopen the southern border by removing barriers. We do not have one toilet per person, but they're going to do it anyway. This is the Supreme Court ruling allowing them access to the federal government across the border now, so they will remove border walls and wire that was there. So how then does Vice President Harris say that we're going to deal with all these new migrants, given that we have these communities that are saying, we're hurting, maybe we want to do something about it, maybe we should stop this? Well, here's where Vice President Kamala Harris says we need to just process these people as Americans faster. That's all there is to it.
We should have a bipartisan approach to fixing this problem, which is a long-standing problem. But what are those solutions? The solution includes putting resources at the border to do what we can to process people effectively, and putting in place laws that actually allow for a meaningful pathway to citizenship.
We have that. We have that. We already have that.
And so what then? We then house them for the duration of this court appearance? We'll just ship them off to New York where we don't even track them and follow them. And then for the next, some of these court appearances are for 2 years from now. You come in 2023, when they came in 2023, literally 2025 was on their paperwork. So for 2 years, we are footing the bill for that.
That's like a bunch of like junior and high school students just go into a college and say, hey, we're just going to hang out here until we're accepted into this college.
Right. For free.
And we want to use a student union, and we want to use the student health center. Right. And we want to
we need a dorm.
Right. We need a dorm, and we want a card for food.
Yeah. And maybe, by the way, I want to go get a sex change operation while I'm waiting.
Yeah.
You know?
But the one thing she says is right, that there should be a bipartisan agreement that if we want to change our immigration system,
You know, this week we've seen red states right behind me off my left shoulder and the country band together behind Texas in order to win its battle against the Biden administration to seal the border. Here's the worry. The red states are backing up Texas, and they're taking on everybody over in Washington, and it's affecting a lot of the blue states that are not actually colored in. But if you've seen these major cities, you know they're all affected. Now, one blue city especially, is waging its own fight against this border crisis. It is Chicago, where they got 35,000 migrants arrived since last August, straining the city's resources and sparking outrage in the community.
You know, the governor of Texas didn't call Chicago a sanctuary city. The mayor called Chicago a sanctuary city. The mayor allowed illegal migrants to come in here and pay them with taxpayer dollars. You know, the thing about it is, our mayor has no plan now. He's having panic attacks. We need to actually recall the mayor.
That'll be a great idea. I don't know why you put him there in the first place. But my next guests are Chicago Democrats and are joining the chorus saying enough is enough. After a building in their South Side neighborhood, intended to be used as a community center, is now being designated as a new shelter for migrants. Joining us right now, Natasha Dunn and her neighbor, 24-year veteran of the military, Jay Darnell Jones. She's an education activist. He's now a DEI consultant, and they're both co-plaintiffs in the lawsuit against the city of Chicago. Welcome to both of you. Natasha, what was your breaking point?
So my breaking point was when the city of Chicago, in a short notice under Mayor Lori Lightfoot, gave us a notice within 2 days that they were going to hold a community meeting to use our former closed high school as migrant housing. We had already noticed that in Woodlawn, they had started the process by using a closed school, and that situation was a complete catastrophic failure. The community was not allowed to have any input in it. They did fight back against it, but the mayor decided to go along with it. So we knew that when we got that notice to the meeting, I specifically knew that there was nothing left to do than to file a lawsuit to stop this from happening, because we realized that they weren't going to listen.
So, Jay Darnell, you're a lawyer. When did you realize legal action was your only way?
Well, we know that historically, Black communities are expected to protest and march and not do anything that's really going to impact the decisions. So at that point, we knew that taking legal action was our only course.
So you are taking legal action. Can you describe the services that the illegal migrants are getting as opposed to what the people of the city need? Do you want to start, Natasha? What are you seeing that they're getting that's really getting under your skin?
Yeah, and let me be clear. We were able to stop the city from putting the migrants in the school building. So they're not in our school building here in the city of Chicago. We were successful in that aspect. But what we see across the city of Chicago is that they're getting access to, they're getting up to $9,000 in funding. They're getting access, they're getting rental assistance, they're getting support, free childcare, free transportation, and with the housing situation, we're noticing now the city of Chicago has been scrambling to really find places for them to go. So they're making deals with landowners. And the problem with that is that in the Black community, there's a lot of absent landowners, and they've left dilapidated properties in our neighborhoods. We have fought for years to try to get those dilapidated properties to come back into the community. And now all of a sudden, now that there's this money falling from out the sky for migrants, these landowners are now using the money to renovate to allow migrants to get in. Let me give you an example. This one landowner in South Shore has a 8-unit building, designated 8-unit building. This man was allowed by the city of Chicago to turn this 8-unit building into a bed for 69 migrants. And he's already have a history of being a slum landlord. So we're now beginning to see that they're prioritizing migrants in housing, and then also utilizing land that really should be renovated and brought back into the community for community use.
Yeah, Jay Darnell, real quick, what's your message to the president out there and the mayor? Because the worst is yet to come. We have reporters on the border every day. It is falling apart. What is your message to the people who allowed this to happen?
My message is, first of all, is that I don't believe one political party is any better than the other in terms of making sure that the needs of Black people specifically are being met. We know that because there's been a history of asking and not receiving anything, regardless of who you voted for. However, I do believe that this immigration issue is just one more bit of evidence to show that this is about, this is about corporate interests. This is not about us. And they will do anything they need to do and want to do to ensure those interests are met, not ours.
I hear you. I mean, I'm seeing them getting dropped off on Long Island, where I'm in, working class communities, going by the rich communities because they know they put too much of a stink. And remember, when those migrants landed in Martha's Vineyard, all hell broke loose because they had a dozen. You're dealing with 35,000. We got 67,000. Unbelievable. Thanks so much for taking actions and not just standing by, guys. We'll keep fighting for you.
There was a video that came out of Chicago where people thought that the migrants were breaking into a vacant apartment building in the South Shore area of Chicago. So, I'm not from Chicago, and I said, let me make sure I do my research before I say anything. And South Shore is a predominantly Black area. Well, I want you to check out this clip. It goes along more what we was already talking about when they're bringing the people in and what neighborhoods they're going to. Let's go ahead and roll that.
Today, food was delivered to families staying in this South Shore building. In recent days, 57 Venezuelans moved into this building on South Essex. That's according to Chris Amator, who says he owns the building.
I just decided, hey, I got the heat on, I got gas, I got electric, water. I go, let's fill them and we'll worry about the details later.
Over the last 9 days, Amator says he felt moved to offer shelter in his vacant apartments after visiting the city's landing center and a shelter for new arrivals.
Damn, I saw 5-year-olds with no jackets on the streets. You know, I was taking my jacket off, putting it on them, and I'm like, tomorrow's going to be -14. I'm like, what's going on?
Amator says over the last 9 days, he, his family, and a couple of volunteers have taken in 448 adults and children at 15 of his residential buildings. Some neighbors posted video of the building on Essex, alleging people were breaking into the building and that the building was not safe.
It's frustrating.
Veronica Cotton is a lifelong South Shore resident and new business owner, but she shares she and her sons were homeless a couple of years ago and they didn't get the help they needed.
Not saying that it's not right to help them, but it's not right for others not to get help as well.
Now, this owner of this apartment, why hasn't 500 people in the city of Chicago had the opportunity? This man, that's what this man said. This is evil. Let me tell you why this is evil. He had a vacant building boarded up. He said he had the lights on, he had the heat on, but then he said, oh, when I saw the migrants don't even have coats. Oh, I was wanting to say, hey, you know, I'll put them in my building. I mean, it's okay. We'll figure out the rest later. You didn't figure out nothing later. Brandon Johnson got in contact with Brandon Johnson or somebody at the city. You said, hey, how much money would you pay me a month to put these people up? Brandon Johnson and them came up with a number that he couldn't refuse. He opened up his building up. He had them over there taking the boards down. And now you have 500 migrants went into the black community. And here we go, placing them in the black community. Now they're going to try to keep doing that in the black. Notice they didn't go put them in the white community. They got buildings in the white community they could have put them in, but no, they went and put them in the black community. The Democrat Party, once again, is trying to force black people out of their areas, and they're using these migrants to do it. Now, the reason why I say that dude is evil is because you sitting on a building with heat on and lights and all of that, and you got residents in Chicago that's out there in the cold, and you wouldn't open it up for them, but now you're going to open it up for migrants who aren't even people that's in the city with you. Then, if you pay attention, he said he has 15 other buildings. This dude's sitting on all kind of real estate, and he's going to be putting migrants everywhere because he's getting paid, folks. When you see them going in the hotels, they're getting paid. Y'all in the city of Chicago should be demanding to see the books. Y'all should be demanding to know where every tax dollar is going. Who are you paying to put these migrants up? We don't know who you're paying, how much you're paying them. You got a vacant building. That's the stuff we're talking about. See, the Democrat Party, but it's the same Democrat Party want you in Chicago to come out and vote for Brandon Johnson again or vote for Joe Biden again. Now, all of you in Chicago right now should be supporting Greg Abbott here in Texas. Greg Abbott is trying to stop the flow of them coming into our state, which when they came to our state, they came to your city, Operation Lone Star. So y'all in Chicago should be really supporting the governor here in Texas, Greg Abbott. What Biden is doing, Biden went to the Supreme Court and got them to say, oh, well, they can cut the razor wire. And you know what Greg Abbott's saying right now? I don't care if you go cut it. I'll put it right back up. Cut it all you want. I'm trying to stop the flow of people coming into Texas. Remember, over 300,000 of them crossed the border. Listen, that at this point is not migration. That's an invasion. I don't know if y'all saw the recent video out of California. They pulled up in a boat, sped up to the shore, and just jumped out running. Like this is not an immigration no more. This is literally an invasion of the United States of America by a bunch of military-age men. And we have a president in office right now who's like, And now they're starting to talk about it because they're forced to. All the Republicans, they're talking about it because it's just good for them to talk about because it's politics. No, it's not politics, Kamala. It's not just the Republicans talking. Because, see, now they forced to talk about it. And even Boule Martin recently talking about the migrant crisis. All this time, he never talked about it. So I guess they told Boule, okay, Boule, you can come out and talk about the migrant crisis, but just say it this way. He literally repeated the same messages the Democrats are saying about the migrant crisis. Listen, gone are the days where you could come out and lie to the people. You can't lie anymore. Your propaganda don't work. And I'm going to tell y'all something else about Boule Martin. Boule Martin, you know how y'all don't respect CNN, MSNBC, and all them other ones because you know they're nothing but Democrat propaganda mills. We don't even legitimize them. Boule Martin is mainstream media too. You have to understand, Boule Martin came from CNN. I don't know why some of y'all think that Boule Martin is some sort of grassroots, because some people actually think that. Some people think Boule Martin is grassroots. He's not. He's mainstream media. He just can't get back in with mainstream media because the last time they gave him a chance, he was with TV One. Boule Martin was leaking presidential debate questions to Hillary. That lets you know how low he is. And when CNN found out Boule Martin leaked questions to Hillary and them, they said, we will never do nothing with TV One again. But Boule Martin don't talk about that. He do anything he can to get in good with the Democrats, even do something conniving. At that time, he should have thought about his career and say, you know what? I don't want to do that because, man, I can get back in good with CNN and get a show back again. Because you know he don't want to do his own show. He wants a show on MSNBC or CNN, right? But one thing you're not going to do, Boule, you're not going to come out here and lie to the people about the migrant crisis. This is literally an invasion, and this invasion happened because your president, Joe Biden, who you love so much, is sanctioning this invasion because they have the ability to stop it right now. Now, Greg Abbott doing his best, but we can't just have 300,000 people come across the border in a month. 2.5 million people came across that border last year. And they're placing these people in the black communities. But yet the Democrats are expecting us to come out and vote for them. And then we speak against this invasion into the United States by a bunch of military-age males. Then they want to call people MAGA. No, nobody's MAGA. You can't tell somebody MAGA when you literally see the invasion. Look at the South Shore area. That area has been invaded by migrants who's not of the black community. They didn't place Africans there. They didn't place Haitians in there. They didn't place people from the Caribbean over there. They didn't place Afro-Latinos there. No, it's somebody that was different than the demographic of the community. And you know good and well what's going to go down. They're going to start acting out. They're going to start displacing the businesses by doing these street vendor things they're doing like they do in California. It's going to affect. Look what that sister said. Hey, you know, I don't mind helping people, but dog, we was homeless. Why you don't, you know what I'm saying? Because sister, I'm going to tell you why they don't open it up for you. You know why? Because you're black. And that same dude can care less about a black woman on the street, a black child on the street. They can see a black child with no jacket, no shoes, no nothing in 10-degree weather in Chicago. And yeah, it's not my problem. That's why. Black people in Chicago, you better hold the line. Black people need to be speaking up about people that have been put in your neighborhood. These people own all these properties in your neighborhood. Listen, you don't have a neighborhood if you don't own it. I'm going to repeat that again. You don't have a neighborhood if you don't own it. If you don't own all the buildings, if you don't own all the businesses, you don't have a neighborhood. This is why they can run you out. But Brandon Johnson is the problem. Because if Brandon Johnson wasn't cutting checks to people, trust me, they wouldn't be in there. Chicago, black Chicago, you made a big mistake. Because they say 88% of y'all voted for Brandon Johnson, those who voted in the election. And y'all the one that's suffering the most with Brandon Johnson. And Brandon Johnson isn't trying to stop the migrants crisis. He's not trying to stop it. He wants more money. Think about it. He's asking Biden for money for it so he can keep doing it. He's not saying, hey, man, okay, this is enough. No. Remember, they can't even say we're no longer a sanctuary city. That's something free they can do. That don't cost nothing. Black folk, you were in Chicago and other cities. You have to give the Democrats a referendum in this election. If you don't want to vote for Donald Trump, fine by me. But vote the couch. Because if you vote the couch and don't give your votes, listen, you vote Democrat, you're voting for more of what you just saw in this video. That's how you got to think about it. Do you really want to go vote for that? Do you want, okay, today is 500. Another 500 can show up tomorrow in your neighborhood. What if once a month 500 show up and outnumber y'all? Then you already know what's going to happen. If they outnumber y'all, look at Los Angeles, California. Look what happened to black folks out there. Y'all gotta take a stand about this. These business, these property owners and all of that. Y'all gotta let them know that's not gonna be tolerated. They say, oh, but that's their building. They could do what they want. Well, why they don't do that in the white area then? Well, do it over there. Spread the wealth, right? But they shouldn't be in nobody's community. I don't care what color. It shouldn't be in nobody's community. They need to be in their homeland. Bottom line. I should be over there pulling up with vans and say, oh, no, everybody come on. You got to take you back on to your homeland. No. They're trying to run black people out of their own neighborhoods. This is all by design, and this is coordinated by the Democrat Party, folks. The Democrats are targeting black Americans. This is their doing. Because the migrants that's doing this, they're only doing what they're allowed to do. They're allowed. The Democrats are funding them. They're inviting them to come here. Biden's been quiet about it. He knows what's going on. He's the president. But yet, we need the black community to come out and vote. You go vote for Biden if you want. Please vote for Biden if you want to. Please. In that black neighborhood you got today, it'll be gone in a few years. Because Biden gonna sit up there and listen, Biden gonna even put them people in Atlanta. Y'all think y'all safe in Atlanta? He gonna target Atlanta too. Go ahead and put him in there for another 4 years. Every black city you got, y'all won't have it no more. Or y'all get pushed out outside the city. That's the plan of the Democrat Party to undermine black Americans, to destabilize black Americans, and bring in hostile people against us to do their dirty work. You vote for Democrat, that's what you're voting for. I don't see how any black person at this point could go vote for them people. Because they're targeting us and they're trying to take our lives away and our livelihood and harm our businesses. This is what the Democrats are actively doing. Now, if Republicans was doing this mess, y'all be raising hell. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to circle back to the Boule Martin program. And the reason we have to circle back to that program, Boule Martin decides to finally talk about the migrant crisis after silence forever. He hasn't said a word. So, that if you've been following the Democrats, now they're talking about the migrant crisis that's happening in this country, but it's not how the majority of people is talking about it. You understand? Now, the video that Boule Martin did on his platform, is so many parts of that we can do a whole podcast on. And I'm weighing, maybe I should take my time with certain parts of it that Boule Martin said. But today we're focusing on his fellow cohort, Dr. Greg Carr. Now, I don't need much of what he's saying to bring a point, but it's one thing to have your political ideologies, and you like the Democrats for whatever reason. It's your right to like the Democrats. If you want to vote for Joe Biden, it is your right. I don't understand it, but it's your right. But when you're outright lying, I have an issue with that. When you outright disrespecting our, Black American ancestors, our culture, our people, etc., just so you can collect a check from the Democrat Party, I have a problem. Now, I want y'all to listen to this. Like I said, I'm going to stop it. And it's only 2 sections I need to go talk about today with this. But let's cue up the first clip.
I don't think that there's an answer really to this because it has been framed. Immigration is a problem. That is the framing. That is a lie. That is
and I'm sick of old Doc right here too with his Pan-African views that he really don't stand on. He just over spewing that bullshit, and they staged all these books is supposed to give you the idea of intellectual superiority. But like I say, they don't feel real short of the mark. He ain't out here standing on it with South Africa and the Pan-African countries who going against Israel. He definitely not with that. He absolutely stood with the imperialist America and the neo-Nazis in Ukraine. This is intellectual thinker right here. You see, these bootleg Greek freak divine nine house niggas that's getting themselves exposed right now. And now he letting us know how great migration is for the Black community. Him and old bootleg Martin trying to get a nice little check from the Democrats because they passing it out. If you carry away for Joe Biden right now, they gonna send you something in the mail.
Incorrect.
So Dr. Greg Carr said everyone is focusing on the migrant crisis, and people are saying all over the country, not just one group of people, all over the country, that this migrant crisis invasion is an issue. But according to Dr. Craig Carr, that is a lie. Now, when you have 300,000 people going to the border last month alone, according to Dr. Greg Carr, that's not a problem. When you have over 2.5 million people showed up to the border to get into this country, and most of them did, that's not an issue and problem at all. They are promoting now that the migrant crisis isn't no kind of issue. It's just Donald Trump and the Republicans. It's MAGA. And any Black person that take issue with this, you just taking white supremacist, white nationalist talking points. That's their whole thing. Is that so Black people in Chicago, let's start with you. And let me get to why I even started talking about the migrant crisis. I really started talking about the migrant crisis, even though it's been an issue in our state for a long time. But a lot of those people kind of stay in the border areas. So they really don't come up too far. So if you know about the border towns in Texas, it's like, satellite Mexico. You want to say that, right? But when he had Operation Lone Star, because when the Biden administration got in, it was a mad rush to the border. And Greg Abbott said, okay, fine. You a sanctuary city? I'm sending them your way. I started looking at the migrant crisis when it started hitting Chicago, because y'all know me and y'all know how I am. My motto about my platform is we focus our energy on our community. We're not going to be doing all these side quests. Only way I'm going to talk about other things unless it centers right back to our community. If it's not affecting us as a community, let somebody else deal with that. I don't have to talk about it. But if it's directly affecting the Black community, whether here in America, throughout the world, you'd better believe I'm going to talk about it. And when I kept seeing how Brandon Johnson was handling this migrant crisis, and we know from experience that anytime people come over here, they dump them in the Black communities and they start stripping resources away from the Black community. That's when I really started paying attention to it. And that's when I started talking about it even more. And then as I look deeper into it and look at how, wait a minute, this is a policy from Biden. Because at least I can give Obama this much credit. Obama was even getting them out of here a lot faster than Trump was getting them out of here. He just did it in a quiet way. Trump was kind of loud in how he did it, but Obama was getting them on out of here too. Look at the numbers in his 8 years. But Biden has this open border policy and just flooding America with people. Nobody know who they are. Nobody know where they come from. This has been proven that certified gang members have come across this border. Terrorists have come across the border. Last night when we showed the video to you guys from California where they run up on boats, running in neighborhoods. Who is these people? That's literally like an invasion. And your Democrat politicians isn't doing anything. But let a black person breathe wrong. And the 30 police are on us. Let a black person jaywalk. He can get or she can get beat up by the cops. But these people storm and invade the United States of America, and that's okay. That no matter who they are. So Greg Carr says the migrant crisis isn't a problem. Hey, brothers and sisters in New York, is it a problem? Because last time I checked, even Democrat Mayor Eric Adams said it's a problem.
This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City. We're getting 10,000 migrants a month. Now we're getting people from all over the globe have made their minds up that they're going to come through the southern part of the border and come into New York City.
He's been loud about saying it's an issue and problem. So what Greg Carr is talking about, oh, is he mad with Eric Adams? Because, the Democrats are very upset for him saying that. See, what I don't understand, Greg Carr, you and Boulay Martin and the rest of you guys, all y'all part of Boulay, I mean, I can call you Boulay Carr, So, yeah, I'll probably call you that. So Dr. Boulay Carr, I'll give you that name. So Dr. Boulay Carr.
Boulay House.
I don't understand the logic in a lot of y'all mind. You're supposed to be a part of a community of black people. When did it come into your mind that I must separate myself from my complete community to serve the interest of racism, white supremacy? Because that's what you're serving. You're serving that particular interest because what you're advocating is harming your community. You guys in the Boulay detach yourself from the community. But see, let me tell you why they detach themselves. The Boulay sold out. And you have to understand, the Boulay has a vested interest in keeping the status quo going. They have a vested interest for things not to change. So all that y'all talking about reparations, you talking about empowerment, you talking about, hey, we need to focus on our culture, our community, our this. Notice they're more upset with us saying that, the Boulay members, the Democrat shields, they're more upset with us and have vitriol than even a racist would. Do you understand? Pay attention to them. Even racist isn't talking that foul or that angrily. It's them. Why? They're no different than, you remember Stephen from Django? Stephen had a good position on the plantation. Stephen had a little authority. Stephen was next to his master Calvin on the plantation. So when you have someone like Django show up about to try to mess up his position on the plantation, because see, you understand, the Boulay is cool being a slave. They just want a good position on the plantation. They don't want to be free. That's what you got to understand. They don't want to be free. They get offended when you say B1. They get offended if you say FBA. They get highly offended. They get angry with you way more than any racist could. Because when you talk about empowerment, when you telling folks, hey, look, the Democrats, look what they have been doing to us for over 50, 60 years. Look what they've been doing. Hey, maybe we should try the other side. Or if we are so emotional about the other side, we can try the couch. Either way, let the Democrats wither on the vine because they don't do nothing for us. They think about it. They curse us. They curse us. They call us names. They insult our intelligence. Why? They shame you, attempt to. They ancestor shame you, telling you your ancestors died. How are you going to sit up there as ancestor shaming? They do all of that. Right? All of that. just so they can keep their position in the status quo. It may be a position at the HBCU, because we know the majority of HBCUs are ran by Boulay. They're not focusing on the greater good of the community. They're not. They always talking about we need money for HBCUs, but yet our kids can't go to HBCUs for free. If the government is giving y'all money, every time y'all look up, y'all going to look for money for HBCUs, but I don't never see none of you HBCUs out here in the Black community say, hey, I got a scholarship for that young brother. I got a scholarship for that young sister. Because we get government money. So we got to give that government money back to the community and bring these kids up here to get a free education so they don't have to go into freaking debt. You're talking about student loan debt. It shouldn't be no student loan debt for Black children, because all HBCUs always up there talking about they need some money, and they get it. Trump gave them money. Even Biden gave them some money. May not have been the money they wanted, but he gave them something. And yet that never turns into scholarships for our children who need the opportunity. That's what I'm talking about. They want positions in the Democrat Party. They love plantation. They get little jobs in corporate America. They look, notice these Boulay members and Shields, they don't push you to create businesses in the Black community so we can create businesses, grow our businesses so we can hire our brothers and sisters in the community. They don't push that. What do they push? A job. Who the job ran by? The folks. They never push home ownership. They're only pushing themselves. Emotionalism to get you to keep voting for Democrats so they can stay good on the plantation. And you have to understand, saying statements like that, that's to keep the status quo going. They don't care how all the situation with the migrants going to take resources away from the Black community, because they get their checks. They don't care if you go to hell in a handbasket, Black America. They going to be good. They got passports. Oh, they'll be over. Listen, it get bad, and then everybody looking for them. Oh, you won't find them. Why? Because they'll be on business class flights out of here, not dealing with you. You better believe that. Them Boulay members are not gonna suffer, so they don't mind handing you to them. They don't mind. They're paid money to get you to go out there and vote Democrat. They're not paid to make you critically think. They're not paid to hold the Democrats accountable. They're not paid for that. And I'm going to tell y'all over and over and over again, Boulay Martin is mainstream media. He's just not on the mainstream media platform. Just as much as like you don't have legitimacy for the mainstream media and you don't trust them because they lie, Boulay Martin, that's what he gets into propaganda. He's always trying to come up here and try to get you into the same problem that you had before. And his issue is, and all his panel most of the time, the issues is that we're not falling for that Boulay shucking and jiving, because we know the Boulay is an enemy to Black America because they are propped up by continuing the oppression and degradation and the disempowerment of Black America. So yes, they're going to say immigration is not a problem. Well, Boulay Carr, why don't you, since immigration isn't a problem, Dr. Boulay Carr, why don't you tell Biden that you got some rooms available in your home and you want to take in a couple of migrant families? Notice all the people that's advocating for it, none of them is opening their homes. And they talking about, oh, migrants on the streets. You got a home. Give the migrants your address and let them come stay in your home. Because I know the Boulay checks is good. So let them stay in your home. You feed them. You do everything with them. I would take y'all more seriously if you take them into your homes. Brandon Johnson, take them to your home. All you Democrat politicians, take them into your homes. Lead by example. Y'all out here asking people to take migrants to your home. We got an extra room. You lead by example. You show us some migrant families that you brought to your house. Show us how they living in your house. Then when all you Democrat politicians have migrant families living in your house, then you could come and tell the people, hey, I got a family of migrants staying with me. I got 2 families of migrants staying with me. It's been great. They're like my new family now. They teaching me Spanish. I'm teaching them English. You know, we're having a great time. Why don't y'all do that? If immigration isn't a problem and everybody just making it up. I don't want to hear no talk from no Democrats saying that when they're not going to open up their household to migrant families. Please, let's continue.
We, of course, are the largest population of forced immigrants in this country, having been brought here against our will. And everybody but the indigenous people is an immigrant.
That last part right there, what really made me make the video. The Democrats have been running with this because they're always trying to tie us to somebody else's issue, because we are the only people that have legitimate claims to justice in this country. We have been the moral authority to fight injustice. So if you attach Black America to it, you get more social capital. This is why every group want to use our tactics, our slogans, our sayings, the way we protest, the way we boycott. They want to use everything we have done because they saw the results of what we have done. But the difference is we got the spirit and they don't. That's the difference. They've been trying to say that Black Americans are immigrants. Saying Black Americans are immigrants, or we was forced to immigrate here, is the most disrespectful thing that you can say about our ancestors. So let's go on logic here. And Dr. Boulay Carr, you're supposed to be smart, right? I say supposed to be. An immigrant have a home country. An immigrant makes a choice to come to a said country. And that immigrant can be even deported back to their home country. Immigrants aren't forced here in chains, sir. Immigrants don't have their language stripped from them. They don't have their name stripped from them. Immigrants look at the migrants now. Is somebody chaining them up and beating them, forcing them into the farms in America? And that's where they stay? Is the migrants that's coming in here today, are they doing to their women, children, and men? Are they bug breaking them on these plantations and farms here in America where they can't leave and their whole life they're there until they pass on? Likening our ancestors to a doggone immigrant is extremely disrespectful, and that's why where you cross the line. In 1 minute, you want to ancestor shame, saying, hey, your ancestors died so you can vote. But yet you turn around and disrespect the ancestors to try to lower them to the immigrants. I don't know no slave in human history that say, you know what? I'm going to leave my home and I'm going to willingly go into slavery. And I'm going to ride at the bottom of a boat where people are chained up side by side, where people are defecating, people are hungry, bleeding, not giving them showers. Many of our ancestors didn't even make it across. My ancestor made it. My ancestor made it to Virginia. My ancestors made it from Virginia, sold into slavery on an auction block to be put on sugarcane plantations in Louisiana. You mean to tell me my ancestors and my family, that's what they chose? They chose to come here? Listen, even racists don't even have that narrative. Now, the racists say, well, your people sold you, but they never said that you by choice went into slavery. Think about it. That is worse with what he just said than even a racist have ever said. Basically, if you think about it, blaming Black Americans for being enslaved. Because say, remember, if we are forced immigrants, it's still, when you immigrate, that's still a choice. Then, Dr. Boulay Carr, if we are immigrant, what nation can I return to? What's my nation? I want to know, what is my real name? What's my language I'm supposed to be speaking right now? Since I'm an immigrant. See, they don't mind disrespecting Black America because Master Biden and the Democrats is cutting them a check. And they're so desperate. Listen, this is a conversation of desperation. Y'all say the Democrats are desperate right now, flooding the zone. No. These right here are desperate. Because no matter what they say, they see them polling numbers. They see a good amount of Black folks is going to vote for Trump. They also see a good amount of Black folks is going to vote for that couch too. They see that. So they got to use every kind of trickery, deception, propaganda to try to get you as Black Americans to get right on in line to be back on that plantation with them. You'll never get nowhere. Think about it. How has Black America progressed under voting for these people? These people don't promote Black businesses. And I'm a big proponent of Black business. Why? Because if we create our own businesses, you'll make more money creating businesses than you do working for a corporation. 2, you can make enough money where you can provide jobs in our community. We don't have to worry about going to work for the folks and have a glass ceiling. They work for the folks and they don't get paid right, but somebody in the folks community could come in and they train them, they become their supervisor and make more than them in 6 months to a year. They don't care about that. They're not advocating for us to build our own communities, build our own schools, grocery stores, have our own doctor offices and hospitals and you know, they're not advocating for those things. They want you to have the same thing. They want to get their check. They want you to work a little Walmart job. Right? And they're all good. Into the next 2 years, they need you to come out and vote Democrat again. This is utterly disrespectful. And I'm proud of a lot of y'all because you know, people have pointed out to me that y'all are not letting them get away with any of this. Boule Martin and his cohorts don't have any kind of legitimacy. They don't. Y'all talk about Candace Owens and all of them and with the things that they say. They're no different than Candace Owens. Like, I don't get how some people say, man, yeah, Roland, oh, he this and he that. I'm like, huh? Do you actually listen to this guy? Do you listen when he advocates? Even Candace Owens don't call Black people stupid. Not like that. She says it in a certain different way. But come on. And I'm not a fan of Candace Owens at all. I wish Candace Owens would actually come on this side. I mean, you know, I've listened to her talk and how she put her words together and how she go back and forth. I wish Candace Owens was on the side I'm on. Because she's actually pretty smart in a lot of ways, but in other ways, she's extremely dumb. She's wasting her whole gifting doing what she's doing. But I want y'all to notice something. These dudes are offended because, and I'm gonna have to go into that. Boule Martin is really offended at the terms B1 and FBA. He's offended. Why would you be offended at the terms B1? What does mean Black first? Hey, I'm focusing on the Black community. It's time for us to focus on us. We focus on everybody else. And what do we get out of that? Nothing. Nobody even says thank you. Nobody even say, hey, I'm in position now. Let me help my Black brother and sister that helped us out. So now Black folks say, no, we're focusing on the empowerment of our community. We're not focusing on other people, period. Boule Martin don't like the term FBA, Foundation of Black America. He don't like the reparations conversation because Roland said the same thing that Clyburn. You ain't getting it. Why? They want you to think that way. There were people on the plantation that said, hey, we're not going to be slaves forever. They had the same people like Clyburn back then too. You ain't getting off this plantation. Go sit down somewhere. You're going to be right here. You better just try to get you a good position on this plantation. That's what you can do. Don't stop trying to cause trouble for massa. I couldn't be against, because think about it. Reparations would benefit all Black people who are descendants of enslaved. So how would you, in America, of course, so why would you be mad about that? Why? Because they got people like that. They do qualify by lineage, but they don't want it because they don't want to mess up their position because massa are going to be upset. But you know what, brothers and sisters? We're going to keep paying attention to what they're saying. Now, listen, they just babbling. I don't care about that. But certain things that we got to call out, we're not immigrants. I'm going to repeat that again. Dr. Boule Carr, we're not immigrants. We never have been. How can we immigrate to a place that wasn't even built yet? You immigrate to established nations. There was no nation called the United States of America until our ancestors built it from scratch. So we are not an immigrant. We was here at the beginning and we here now. So no, the term immigrant don't work for Black Americans.
Here before they got here.
Anybody else that came here after the establishment of the nation, fine, immigrate. But not us. Not us. These people, ladies and gentlemen, will say anything for a check, for a luncheon. You know, Boule Martin, he loved them luncheons, boy. Ooh, them luncheons. They love them luncheons. You know, you see him up there with Kamala and Fat Joe and all them other ones. Look, they all, you know, the pictures I saw, D.L. Hughley and all them people like that, all on the payroll to sell us out. Y'all have to understand when these people are talking, it just needs to go in one ear out the other. When you don't take nothing they say serious, look at them no different than you look at CNN or MSNBC. That's the same thing. They just on YouTube. But that's still the same circles. This Boule Martin got on the outs with that. Because see, Boule Martin just did too much. So they had to kind of put him in his place and relegate him to the internet. They may let him come on every once in a while to do a little guest spot, but they're not going to let him have a show. Because Boule Martin was getting a little too sassy with him. You know what I'm saying? But this is what we're dealing with. And I'm so glad many of you in the community are saying enough is enough. And what I want to see election night, I can't wait to see them numbers. I want to see them Trump numbers high. Of course, if he's the nominee, I want to see them Trump numbers up, or I want to see them couch numbers up, whatever. Whatever you choose to vote, the couch or Trump. Like I said before, I am good with that. I am completely good with that. But I want to see Boule Martin losing his mind like in 2016. I want to see it, ladies and gentlemen. And didn't y'all enjoy that in 2016 when Boule Martin just lost his complete mind? I want to see that video, and you brothers and sisters can help that video happen. You can vote for the couch or you can vote for Trump. See, we advocate voting here. Oh, we're not against voting. Oh, well, we support voting. We support travel here, passports. I want all the people that listen to me get you a U.S. passport. I want all of you to have a driver's license. Well, you should have one. Because you remember when the Democrats tried to say not having a driving license and voter ID was racist? It wasn't racist. Every Black person I know got an ID. No, that's for the migrants to go vote. That's what that's about. No, Black America supports voter ID laws. We do, because we got an ID. Even if you can't get a driver's license, you can get a state ID. At minimum, no one is banned from getting a state ID. So please, you need ID to fly. You need ID to get in the club if that's where you're going. You need ID to get in a bunch of places. And Black folks got them. I ain't seen one Black person when I go to the airport say, "Oh, I don't have an ID." They have it. So glad our people woke up to that swindling they was trying to do to us. Because they try to get us to fight for these issues that are not going to benefit us. But ladies and gentlemen, it's just the disrespect to our ancestors, the lying about immigration. That's all they can do at this point is lie and be disrespectful. That's all they can do because the truth is not on their side. And I can't wait to November because I want to see Boulay Martin rage about that election.
This weekend for a series of fundraisers in the state that propelled him to the Democratic nomination and, of course, then the presidency 4 years ago. After struggling to make headway in the first 3 primaries in 2020.
Now look, this is what I keep telling you. Look at that man. Last time Joe Biden ran for president, he was second in Iowa. That's a loss. Second in New Hampshire, loss. Second. See, all these was losses for Joe. He was having losses. Man. Oh, no, he was fourth. My bad. That was the date. He was fourth place in Iowa. Oh, Lord, I said he was second. My bad. I tried to give him a better finish than he really had. In New Hampshire, he was fifth. Oh, Lord, I put him at the back. He was at the bottom. You see, he had all these 3 straight losses. Fifth place in New Hampshire. That means it was 4 other people that they wanted. They really weren't burning. Then bootlicking, shoe shining, bug dancing, Greek freak, Jim Clyburn, Boulay, endorsed him. Then he won in South Carolina. This when he had the black people. See, all these other places, white people, stuff like that, they didn't want him. White people didn't want Joe Biden. Like, man, we don't want him. We don't like him. Then he came down here to South Carolina. Black people saved his damn presidency. That's why right now the white people mad because Joe Biden is trying to start the Democratic primaries off and stuff like that in South Carolina. So he can look like he got a bunch of support. He's coming out strong. But what he's counting on is black people who he said himself, he ain't finna do nothing for us. The same people that got to put his no good racist ass in the office, which we ain't going to do. But the Boulay lied to him, told him they could again.
Biden rode the endorsement of Representative Jim Clyburn to a victory in South Carolina and then in 11 of 13 primaries on Super Tuesday. But now Biden appears to be losing popularity, especially among black voters, putting his re-election chances at risk. Let's bring in Brooke Schaefer, who's in Columbia, South Carolina, with more on that. Hey, Brooke.
Hey there, Hannah. Good morning. President Biden's favorability amongst voters overall is down. But like you said this morning, some Democrats are concerned about a key demographic here. Black voters' feelings towards President Biden are wavering, and that could spell trouble for him.
Oh, no, don't worry now. Don't worry now. Your ship is sinking. What you mean you going to worry? You see if you got life preservers? No, you ain't got no life jackets. The ship is sinking. You're going down with the ship, Democrats. It's over for you.
November. Looking back at some of the numbers in 2020, Democrats won the black vote by incredible margins with about 92% of the vote. But some latest numbers from YouGov that are out just this week show a 20% drop in that support. Some black voters here in South Carolina told me that they don't like their options. They are disappointed with President Biden and are even considering not voting at all come November.
Nah, they say vote for Trump.
Just want to cause more bills for everybody, and you got a lot of homeless people out here. I think the black community is everybody community.
I did vote for Biden last election, and if he is running again, I don't think that would be a selection I would make. I want to say regret it. That's a strong word. I want to say I regret it. I just wish it was another choice.
All right, so what does the president have to do to turn this around here? Well, according to one of the president's most outspoken supporters, he needs to do better with his messaging. Congressman Jim Clyburn of South Carolina played a huge role in influencing black voters to support Biden back in 2020. Just this week, he expressed the need for the president and his campaign to do a better job at touting his big wins from his first term. That's also something we are hearing from voters here in South Carolina. As you mentioned, Henna, President Biden has a stop here in South Carolina later tonight. This is going to be a big stop for him, not only as he looks to energize Democratic voters ahead of the primary here next week, but he's also looking to energize Black voters who make up a big part of the electorate in this state. Henna.
Brooke Schaefer live in South Carolina. Thank you so much.
What they tell you, we gotta be looking out on the boule to get a little extra payments in their bank account. How can Joe Biden energize Black voters? He can't. But they finna come around try to energize the bank accounts of the boule, hoping, energize some of these pastors, which we don't give a damn about. They not gonna save Biden. It's too late for them.
Tonight, Arab leaders in Michigan turned down a meeting in Dearborn with President Biden's campaign manager, as some in the community are angry over the U.S.'s handling of the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza.
And that's how our leaders supposed to treat them. Now, we don't want no meeting with you. We shunning you, Biden. We done with you. That's what the Arab leaders just did to in Michigan. Say, man, we ain't meeting with y'all. Hell no. We ain't meeting. No, ain't nothing to meet about. You done us wrong. It's it for you. Finito. You're finished. But the bootlicking boule, too many coons. They don't want to talk to them like that. When they say Biden done something to them, look the Arabs gonna show you how to handle Joe Biden.
CBS News Detroit's Ibrahim Sunrise on your block in Dearborn with more.
Arab American leaders here in Dearborn say now is not the time for electoral politics. In fact, they say President Biden's attempt to send campaign staff right here to Dearborn to discuss elections is not only dehumanizing, but also a slap in the face.
You're not welcome in Michigan. We will make sure that your visit will fail.
As Biden's campaign team.
You are not wanted. That's one of the leaders of the Arab community. They say they're going to make sure that your visit, anything you're trying to do, they say they're going to make sure it failed. But them coons, they are too scared to talk back like that. And you know what? This the white man's country. You know what they'll do to us? And what the Arabs don't feel like that. They definitely just got here. They say, hell no, with they back up straight. They refuse to meet Biden or any of his representatives. That's how you talk to them if you say you pissed off.
Team scheduled to meet in Dearborn Friday with a group of Arab American leaders. Folks like Wayne County Executive Asad Turfi canceled the meeting over Biden's handling of the Israel-Hamas war.
So you were invited to the meeting?
Yeah, I received a call. I received an invitation to attend.
Dearborn Mayor Abdullah Hammoud says he also was invited, but declined.
For us, you need to have that conversation with the policymakers. Those who are actually influencing decision making.
Our problem is too many coons can't wait to show up to meet Joe Biden and take a picture, shake his hand, and talk about everything that they done, the good that he done did. What the Arabs say, he ain't done no good. They don't want to meet him. Don't waste their time. You got murder. You got blood on your hands, Joe. That's what they saying. And I say, I was so proud. I said, God damn, them coons making us look like house niggas. Arabs say, hell no, Joe. It is over for you. They going on TV. They saying they ain't whispering it. You didn't get this on no wiretaps. You didn't catch them talking about you behind your back, Joe. They went on the news and let the whole world know. Humiliation. We refused to meet him. He came to kiss our butt. We said, hell no. We shunning you.
That is not campaign staff. And it's actually dehumanizing to send campaign staff to ask us, what would it take to earn your support in November? When you have an active genocide that's being funded and supported and defended by the current administration.
We don't need to meet with Joe Biden.
At the Islamic Center of Detroit, Khalid Tarani, the chairman of the abandoned Biden campaign in Michigan, saying any attempt to regain votes from
Joe Biden, them people asked him, what can we do to earn your vote? They say, killer! Shame on you! Killer, killer, killer. They start yelling and shame on them. They say, you ain't getting no vote. Get the hell out of here. You thought we was playing with you? No, go over there to the Jewish community and get them votes. Like we supposed to be telling them, going on over there to the Asians or the Mexicans, don't come back to our community. You didn't do nothing for us. The Arabs don't got no problem with saying, man, you better go on over there to Israel. That's who you were standing with. You wasn't standing with us. And we going to remember that at election time. They letting Joe know that.
From Arab American voters in Michigan, a key swing state, is a waste of time.
He finished.
Any opportunity for redemption for Joe Biden would have happened 30,000 Palestinian souls ago. Now it is too late for him to redeem himself.
Lexis Zaydan, a local Palestinian activist, says she too decided to turn down the invite.
I think the nightmare they've always feared is here, and that's that the Arab American and Muslim vote has become both a knight and a queen in their chess game of politics. They now see us as a threat, and they know they can't win elections without us.
As for State Representative Alabas Farhat, the member of the Democratic Party,
this isn't a political issue, Brahim. It's not. It's not a political issue.
Yes, he could still win the elections without them if he had that strong black vote. Since the black vote is leaving him, this was a nail in the coffin. Now, you can't have the black people say, oh, man, the hell with you and the boule. Y'all, we done with y'all. Where Trump at? We talking business now like they was doing in Chicago, like they was doing in New York, asking to meet Trump because they was tired of the migrations. You see, this is why Joe Biden, they hemorrhaging support. Now, the Arabs for them to take they're going to try to take a lot of credit, cool, but they know who sunk they ship. The Arabs wasn't putting them in office. We've been doing this before it was in the Arabs to vote. They've been using us. But now it's just, it's about optics. So the Arabs, they're going to beat their chest. But because our black leaders not coming out here talking like this. You got black citizens coming out and saying this, but no black leaders are saying the hell with you, Joe Biden and Democrats, for what y'all done to us. They too scared.
Issue. This is an issue. The solution is simple. It's been laid out. For 112 days, it's been laid out.
The only conversation he's willing to consider is one that involves a ceasefire.
The message is simple. If Biden wants to reopen the door to the Muslim community, to the community of human rights activists who see what's going on and say, this is not the America I stand with, this isn't what my tax dollars should be going towards. If he wants to reopen the conversation, it's very simple. It begins with a ceasefire.
Now, we did reach out to the Biden campaign for comment. They have yet to respond. Moving forward, though, many Arab leaders here in this community in Dearborn say the only way they're willing to have a conversation is one that involves a ceasefire. Reporting in Dearborn.
They say if Joe Biden not saying ceasefire, which he's scared to say because of Israel, they say he ain't got the time to be meeting with him. They don't got time to be meeting with him. Joe Biden didn't want nobody to know this happened. This was some humiliation that I had to bring to y'all, let y'all know they hiding this. Joe went there begging, please, what can I do? They say, see, turn yourself in to the World Criminal Court and you will have a fair trial. That's what you can do.
Most of them are in Detroit's suburbs. 3 cities in this area are led by Arab. Michigan boasts an Arab American population of over 250,000. Most of them are in Detroit's suburbs. 3 cities in this area are led by Arab American mayors, a first in the United States. All that makes this community a coveted voting bloc by Democrats, and especially a president whose 2020 victory in Michigan hinged on their support.
Joe Biden will not get our votes if he stands on his head from now until November. It's done.
Minutes before our interview with the publisher of the Arab American News in Dearborn, Biden's campaign manager, Julie Chavez Rodriguez, had come to explore the potential for a presidential visit here.
I just said it to this campaign manager, that he has to do better than Jesus, bring in thousands from dead.
Arab Americans say they're abandoning Biden.
That man say, Joe Biden, you want our vote? You're going to have to do better like Jesus. You're going to have to bring thousands of Palestinians back from the dead. Which you can't do, you're not getting no vote. They don't want people to know this.
In November's election because of his administration's continued unconditional support for Israel in its war on Gaza and his downplaying of Palestinian casualties. Biden has yet to call for a ceasefire despite mounting domestic pressure.
Who are the Arab Americans in Michigan? They're Palestinians, Lebanese, Iraqis, Syrian, and Yemenis. And you're bombing the hell out of them. This president is destroying their country. They will not meet with her.
Across town, we meet with Dearborn businessman Nasser Baidoun, who's running for the U.S. Senate.
You have a U.S. president that's responsible for the death of 30,000. To us, that's not a president. That's a criminal.
Similar statements made by a handful of progressive Democrats in Congress have led the pro-Israel lobby to spend tens of millions of dollars to try and unseat them.
I was approached by the former chairman of the Democratic Party from Michigan, and they offered me $20 million if I drop out of the race, run against Rashida Tlaib.
That former chairman, Lon Johnson, denies he made the offer to Baidoun on behalf of the Israeli lobby. The other Democratic candidate for the Senate seat, Hill Harper, made the same claim weeks earlier.
When I got my citizenship in 1984 from President Reagan, that Republican president told us that now you became an American citizen. Don't forget where you came from. Don't forget your culture and your heritage. Keep it and share it with Americans and make America great again.
That slogan now attached to the very likely Republican candidate in this year's presidential race, one who has openly disparaged Arab Americans, many of whom are Muslims and immigrants. There are no definitive answers here about how exactly this community will approach the ballot, only a commitment that Biden is not welcome to return. Yasmin Al-Sabawi, TRT World, Dearborn, Michigan.
See what Jordan got himself into? And it's only gonna get worse. Why? Because what I started the program off. What did we start the program off talking about, y'all? Three U.S. soldiers killed, over 34 wounded. Some of them severe wounds. We're not wishing that no more deaths come, but it's likely it's gonna be more deaths. So he got that on his head. And so he got to now. The people in America are gonna be screaming for more. People to be killed in the Middle East, which got him into this position. So he called him quicksand. So let's hear a little bit more, because I can get a little bit more from I think his name is Colonel Daniel Davis, who warned this would happen, and he one of the people who warned that we should get our soldiers up out the Middle East before this strike happened. So nobody can say where did this come from. Nobody knew. No, you have American soldiers, ex-soldiers with rank who knew this was going to be happening, knew it was a bad idea for Joe Biden to be playing these games in the Middle East at this time.
3 American soldiers have been killed in the Middle East, just across the Syrian border near a place called El Tanf. This is something I'm going to do my best to maintain my composure here because I want to be professional, but I am angry. I'm angry because I have been warning for months and actually for years that we risk losing American soldiers and their lives for no gain to our country.
Scott Ritter, Colonel McGregor have been warning this was going to happen. And I don't know what he's finna say now, so we're going to see how he feel, but they've been warning if you do more, they're going to do more in the Middle East. They're not going to back down from U.S. or NATO. No way will they at all.
Country in a way that was entirely avoidable. Now then, the worst outcome has happened, or maybe not the worst outcome. The worst outcome may yet come to pass after this, because how we respond to this will take everything in us to do the right thing, which means I have low confidence that we're going to do the right thing in the government, because so far we've done all of the worst things which have harmed our national security, have now resulted in our troops being killed, and if not handled properly, could result in us getting sucked into a war where even more American troops will be killed.
Yep.
Here's what I want to make sure you understand. Now, for those who may not have seen yet, there was 3 Americans who were killed overseas just hours ago. Gary, if you can throw that map up there. This was, like I said, it was actually in Jordan. It was just on the Jordan side of the Syrian border. It was a place called Tower 22. Which means it was just a small outpost, and it was held up there where some of our troops were overwatching a base that we have, El Tanf, in Syria. But like all of these things,
they were overwatching the oil fields in Syria where they stealing oil at, and where ISIS is at, where they're helping ISIS regroup to further attack Syria, to further attack Iraq, to put pressure on Jordan, to scare the hell out of Saudi Arabia. If your ass get out of line, ISIS might attack you. The U.S. was only here to threaten all of these countries. You see, destabilize Iran. That's why they're here. Syria don't want them now. Jordan is a fictitious country who's going to pay the price if they don't remove them soldiers from their goddamn country real quick. That puppet monarch over there, that fake king, going to be overthrown. And that's real quick, because it's heating up right now.
Keep saying over and over, basically these guys are just a little dot on a map that they have to try and protect themselves as much as doing any job. Now, as we have had on our show here not long ago, back in November, when we were one of the times we were complaining about these pointless risks to our troops, we put on here a thing by John Kirby, who made this rather inaccurate claim.
We're not looking to escalate, but we absolutely have a viable mission in Iraq and Syria to go after ISIS, which is still a viable threat. And we got to make sure that we have.
Every time they say we in Syria and Iraq to go after ISIS, I'm glad they say that legally. They can't show you when the last time they attacked us, ISIS. And if you is fighting ISIS, why do we never hear about ISIS attacking you? Why is it just Iranian-backed such and such group somewhere attacking you and not ISIS? And we know Iran do not fuck with ISIS. They are mortal enemies. So why is it that Iran, it seems that you're on the side of ISIS and you're helping ISIS against your enemies? You see, because legally they got to trick the Americans as to why are you even in Syria? Oh, we over there fighting ISIS. That's a fucking lie. And Syria didn't ask you to help them fight ISIS. Syria has Russia. So imagine Russia is in Syria. Do you think that Russia need the U.S. help fighting anybody? Hell no. U.S. is the problem. So it's pathetic that they steady come on the news and trick Americans into thinking, wait a minute, the reason we're there is that we're there fighting terrorists. No, those people say you are the terrorists in their countries.
We have the troops and the capabilities to do that, which means they need to know that we're going to do what we have to do to protect them. I would note that these the flurry of attacks that occurred just in the wake of the strikes we took over the weekend were ineffective, no injuries, no significant damage, and most of them were intercepted.
Okay, that's nonsense. There is no active counter ISIS mission. Does anybody think that a handful of guys on Tower 22 were actually going after ISIS, or that the troops in Al Tanf were going after ISIS?
Now he's saying it because he pissed off that U.S. soldier died. Y'all always remember, this is a U.S. soldier, colonel. He's a colonel. The fact that they lying saying they fighting ISIS is despicable. You goddamn all thief. You ain't fighting no ISIS. You are ISIS. But they got a lot to y'all today because some of y'all might snap to why are you even over there to get attacked? Oh, remember ISIS? We fighting them. Well, why you ain't been? Show us some video. You fighting ISIS. Where is your attacks on ISIS? Oh, we fighting Iran. I thought you fighting ISIS. It's all a lie.
Now they may have been able to take out a leader here and there, and it doesn't make any difference. It hasn't made any difference for years. Those troops have been there because the administration is unwilling to pull them out. Trump tried to pull them out several times, or at least he said that he tried.
Trump told us Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton created ISIS, but Trump came out and told the truth. It was very despicable what he said. He said we stealing the oil. I done played that video 1,000 times. Everybody know about the video. Trump on the news saying we taking the oil, we keeping the oil. That's why they pissed off, because he supposed to say we there fighting ISIS. You not supposed to say we there stealing the oil. Trump didn't have time to be playing games, man. No, we there stealing the motherfucking oil. That's what they there. That's what they got attacked for today, for stealing the oil. The ISIS BS is a lie.
Unsuccessfully, the bureaucracy and the weight of the Pentagon and the so-called elite Washington foreign policy people pushed back against it. So he finally just said, okay, never mind. I'll just leave them there. Biden has not even tried to take them out. He's just left them there, and they keep saying this myth and this fiction. And this is important. This is why I put that clip up there, folks. This is deep dive. I'm all about telling you the truth, whether anybody likes it or not. This is one of those cases where it really matters. There is no active counter ISIS mission that has any value to America.
Tell the truth.
That's just what they say to make people not want to pull them out, because they want to always have this specter of terrorists coming to get us. And my God, if we leave these troops here, it has nothing to do with keeping America safe. But by keeping those troops there, they were a point of vulnerability. Now, I went on Fox Business News about a month and a half ago and was worried about this exact outcome. Here's what I said.
Nah.
What is the White House?
I played this clip, and he like a prophet. He told him this was gonna happen because he's a soldier, and he knew, and he knew that it's nothing the U.S. can do except pull out. You're not finna teach them a lesson. You're not finna win no wars in the Middle East. Just pull out. You're not as strong as you used to be. But they're not humble. You know, they hypocrites and they arrogant bastards.
What is doing with Iran, Colonel?
I certainly think that they need to put any suspension on anything going forward in that regard. And I think for the most part that they have. But the bigger issue I think that we need to pay attention to is our troops that are on the ground and so vulnerable in both Iraq and in Syria. Because as I've been really pleading for years, that we need to get those guys removed because they serve no valid purpose for us, but they are a point of vulnerability that could potentially put us in a position where we have to respond to Iran if any of those troops are ever killed. I know there's going to be a lot of pressure for that, and I am staunchly for anyone who attacks American troops. They should be taken out and killed without question. But I'm also for not putting our troops in unnecessary harm's way. Those troops can be redeployed elsewhere where they're more used to us and less available for the Iran-backed groups to attack. That's something I said I think last week. Again, look, these troops on the ground perversely made it easy for Iran to attack. If these troops weren't there, if we had redeployed them when Trump first said so in 2019, if Biden had done it any point up to this time, those troops, my friend, would be alive right now. This is what has been like anguishing to me all the time since, because I knew it was just a matter of time until one of these strikes finally came through and scored and hit our people, and they finally killed them. Now then, predictably, there is a huge flowing. If you've been watching the news at all, I'm sure I'm probably the only one you've heard that's saying, let's don't do something stupid and get more Americans killed and get ourselves sucked into a war. Almost everybody else is saying, yep, let's go get them. As a matter of fact, Lindsey Graham, I think just hours ago, Gary, if you could throw that up there. Yeah, he's like, hit Iran, hit them hard, hit them now. That was not even an hour ago. And he keeps saying all this stuff. Of course, that's his gist. That's what he's been saying all the time. And now then we have General Kellogg was on Fox News again just minutes ago, said this.
They have to do what I would call super escalate. They have to take it to a level that everybody's uncomfortable, including those in the Situation Room, where you go to a level you say, okay, this isn't a gamble. It's a risk, and we understand the risks involved. But until we make a clear message, and we send a clear message, these are going to continue. So you have to go outside of your normal box, and you have to break the escalation ladder. Either attack the Quds Force leaders, that's Ismail Ghani, or the Supreme Leader Khomeini, or the facilities they've got in Iran. But somebody has to make a hard call, because now we've reached a point where we're going to have to do something very hard, very strong, and the response is going to be probably, but from their end, it could be proportionate. So be prepared for that.
Yeah. Be prepared for that. No thought given to at all what comes next. Now, I was just on Fox News a few minutes ago, and I was bracketed by other generals who said similar things. We have to go and hit them hard. That's all anyone's thinking about. Let's go in and hit Iran. I'm telling you, I guarantee you, there are people in our government and people up in the so-called political foreign policy elite who have been salivating, actually hoping.
Listen, Iran is a nuclear power without saying a nuclear power. I just reading a study of this earlier. Iran could make 12 nuclear bombs within 4 months. They got the enriched uranium. So they can make 12 nuclear bombs within 5 months. They have 12 nuclear weapons. Okay, what is that? They have hypersonic weapons. They've already proved that what they can do, their missile capabilities. All this arrogance. So they need to be thinking, just why you wouldn't fuck with North Korea, you're not finna be bombing Iran and doing whatever you want to Iran, unless they do want just the end of the world with this arrogance.
Something like this happens because now then they get what they always wanted, a war with Iran. They want to say that, like Kellogg here, like Lindsey Graham does all the time, we want to send a message. I'm going to throw up if I hear that again. There's no message being sent. All these attacks that Biden has already done against some of these groups and some of their support in the IRGC areas within Syria and Iraq, they haven't sent any message. The only message they get is, that's all you got? Yeah, we're going to keep going here. Oh, okay. So the thought goes, well, then we just need to hit them harder. Then they'll get the message. No, they're not stupid. They know that if any Americans were killed, that there's going to be a response. They're ready to twist this into something that's going to benefit them. Being attacked by American actually helps them in their Iranian regime, in their domestic issues, where they have a ton of problems in their own country, keeping folks focused on anything besides their domestic governance, which is terrible. It's awful. And they've got all kinds of protests always going on. They would love to have a low-level war with the United States that preserves their regime, and it makes it easier for them to suppress their own people. Because, look, they know that we're not going to go to war with Iran. We don't have the capacity. Do you understand that? Iran is substantially larger than Iraq, and we know what Iraq did to us and sucked us in for, half a decade of terrible disaster. Cost thousands of Americans killed, tens of thousands wounded, hundreds of thousands with PTSD, traumatic brain injuries. It was catastrophic for our country. We're still paying for that. We will